Ladies and gentlemen, Mizrachi leaders, professionals, and friends from all around the world, thank you for joining the Global Mizrachi Summit. Our opening session, Mizrachi Reinvigorated, the last 5 years, will begin now. Introduced by the Chief Executive of the Mizrachi World Movement, Rabbi Doron Perez.
Welcome to the World Mizrachi Global Summit here from Yerushalayim in the heart of the Old City, welcoming thousands of people from Israel and around the world to this very special opening for these 3 hours today of our Global Summit, discussing so many issues facing the global religious Zionist community of past, present, and future. Thousands of people have joined us. We apologize. We all wish that it was in person. This pandemic has redefined how we interact, and we hope and pray to return to regular in-person reactions and interactions. And we hope and pray that at the very latest this time next year, we're able to come together, not only the delegates this coming week of the World Zionist Congress for the 38th Congress, but all of us at Mizrachi to come together for our Veidah in person in Jerusalem in a year's time. But of course, this pandemic has taught us so many things we didn't know before, that we can connect with people at any given time on Zoom or other platforms all over the world, as we're doing today. There are thousands of people who have joined us. We apologize to those in the Pacific West Coast of the United States. You've woken up at 6 a.m. in the morning, but at least take comfort in the fact that in Melbourne and Sydney, on the West Coast of Australia, they're 18 hours ahead. It's 12 o'clock at night. We apologize to both and all in between for joining us together, thousands of you, for this most important discussion and opening of our global Veidah, our global summit. And what a time to do it. Parashat Bereshit, the beginning and rediscovering beginnings. Rosh Chodesh, rediscovering renewal and revitalization as we do every month. Yom Rishon, the beginning of the week, as we, after a restful and inspiring Shabbat, we come together to re-inspire ourselves, to serve Hashem, to commit to our mission in the week ahead. And therefore we welcome you all on behalf of all of us at Mizrachi, the board of the Mizrachi World Movement, all the professionals of Mizrachi in Israel, and all of our branches around the world and the boards around the world, our supporters and friends, all stakeholders, welcome for joining us for this global online summit. We would be remiss if we would not begin this summit with Divrei Chizuk and Tehillim for our beloved, to so many people in the Jewish community and far beyond, previous Chief Rabbi of the British Commonwealth, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. All of us at Mizrachi, and indeed far and wide, are praying for his full and speedy recovery. His sage spiritual leadership, moral guidance, and profound eloquence continue to inspire a generation within the Jewish community and far beyond. In the merit of the countless people who he continues to uplift and impact, may he merit a full and speedy recovery. Rabbi Sacks, of course, is also a great friend and supporter of our Mizrachi movement. You'll see him appearing many times during the course of this presentation. And our heartfelt blessings of Refuah Shlema go out to Harav Yaakov Ziv Ben Liba. Please join me for Psalm 121. I'll say it slowly. You know it off by heart. We'll say it together. The very profound and moving Psalm 121. We shall all have in mind that we say the psalm L'Refuat Harav Yaakov Ziv Ben Liba. Shir Lamalot Esainai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri Me'im Adonai Osei Shamayim Va'aretz Al Yitein Lamot Raglecha Al Yanum Shomerecha Hinei Lo Yanum Velo Yishan Shomer Yisrael, Adonai Shomrecha, Adonai Tzilecha, Al Yad Yeminecha, Yomam Hashemesh Lo Yakeka, Ve'yareach Balayla, Adonai Yishmorcha Mikol Ra, Yishmor et Nafshecha, Adonai Yishmor Tzedcha Vo'echa, Me'ata Ve'ad Olam. Refuah Shlema. Gives me great pleasure to introduce 3 people who will speak one after the other. The chairman of World Mizrachi of our VAD, Mr. Harvey Blitz, woken up early-ish in New York. Welcome, Harvey. And we look forward to you opening officially this global summit, followed by Divrei Bracha and Chizuk from the Chief Rabbi of the State of Israel, Rabbi David Lau Shlita, and also from our very own Sivan Rav Meir, Mizrachi Shlicha, scholar in residence to North American communities and well-known media personality and educator, Chairman Mr. Harvey Blitz, Rabbi David Lau, Sivan, Rahav, Meir, to officially open our global summit.
Thank you, Doron. It's my pleasure on behalf of World Mizrachi to welcome you all to this wonderful Mizrachi Global Summit. In particular, I want to recognize the presence of Kurt Rothschild, who is the heart and soul of Mizrachi. He was the leader of Mizrachi in Canada. He's a legend in Canadian Jewry. He has been living in Israel for many years now and has been the active head of president of World Mizrachi. And we welcome him tremendously. He'll be celebrating his 100th birthday in just a couple of months, and we look forward to having him with us for many, many more years. What I wanted to say, just very briefly, is that we put together today an excellent program for the leadership of World Mizrachi. It's a program of inspiring speakers. It's a program looking back to what we've accomplished in the last few years. And most importantly, it's a program of looking forward to what it is that World Mizrachi can do to help the development of Mizrachi and Mizrachi principles around the world. This is a global summit. It involves all countries where Mizrachi is active. And we look forward to your increased participation and effective participation in all that World Mizrachi does in the way going forward. Thank you very much for joining us today. And as I said, we look forward to working with all of you going forward to make the world a better place, to make World Mizrachi a better organization, and to spread Torah and love of Eretz Yisrael throughout the world. Thank you very much.
שלום עליכם, אחים וידידים מהארץ ומתפוצות הגולה. אנחנו יודעים שביתי, אומר הקדוש ברוך הוא, אם הוא בית תפילה לכל העמים, בוודאי שהוא הבית של כל היהודים, כל באי עולם, בכל פינות העולם. היהודים כולם שייכים כולם למקום אחד, אל ארץ הקודש, אל מדינת ישראל. בכניסה לירושלים ניצב בניין הרבנות הראשית. והרבנות הראשית עומדת כאן במאמץ גדול להיות למזוזה של ירושלים, לוודא שהארץ היא ארץ של קודש, היא ארץ שמורגש בה דבר השם. יהודים בכל תפוצות הגולה נסעו ונושאים עיניהם אל ארץ הקודש, אל עיר הקודש ירושלים. ואנחנו עכשיו מתכנסים במאמץ לנסות ולברר ולראות כיצד לחזק את הקשר הזה. כיצד להתעלם מרעשי רקע של פוליטיקאים למיניהם שמנסים לחבל, להפריע ולהפריח לעתים גם שמועות ודברים כדי לבוא ולנתק את הקשר בין היהדות שומרת תורה ומצוות בארץ הקודש לבין היהדות שומרת תורה ומצוות בארצות הגולה. עם אחד אנחנו, ברכה אחת משותפת לכולנו, בואו נשמור עליה. בואו נשמור על הקשר הזה, נחפש לחזק אותו, ובשיח, במפגשים, בדיבורים, וכשישנן שאלות שואלים, לעתים מדברים, לעתים מסכימים ולעתים גם לא. אבל ביחד נדע שנזכור תמיד לדבר אחד עם השני ולא אחד על השני, אלא למצוא את השפה המשותפת כדי לוודא כיצד מצליחים להגיע אל העובדה שעם אחד אנחנו, שפה משותפת לנו, ובוודאי שלכל שומרי תורה ומצוות יש שיח משותף בינינו כדי למצוא את הדרך לוודא שביתי יהיה אכן בית תפילה בראש ובראשונה לעם היהודי כולו בכל ארבע קצוות תבל, ולזכות את כולנו לראות במו עינינו ושוב השם לציון בגאולה השלמה, ולראות את הבית שהוא בית אכן לכל העמים. עלו והצליחו, יהיו הדיונים פוריים תועלתיים למען כלל ישראל בארצו, למען כלל ישראל בעולמו, ובוודאי בימים הלא פשוטים הללו שאנחנו מתפללים, שהבריאים תתמיד בריאותם, החולים יבריאו, והשמחה תהיה לכל העולם כולו. חורף טוב ובריא לכולנו.
Shalom, it's Sivan Rav Meir, welcome. Wow, as a World Mizrachi Shlicha to North America, we still cherish that title. I want to share one short story. Since we met, I think thousands of Jews all over North America, and we saw Mizrachi people who are so active, engaged, proud. But we also met outside of that beautiful bubble, other type of Jews. And when we lived there for almost a year, that's maybe the opportunity to thank Rabbi Doron Perez, Rabbi Reuven Taragin, Ohad, all the great people working so hard in order to make that Congress, that event, but everything that's going on around the world, especially now, making it happen. So we moved to America. We had no idea it will stop after 9-10 months, but we still had this privilege to meet our brothers and sisters abroad. And we really met so many wonderful Jews, so engaged, and so, people who love Israel, and they know what's going on. Sometimes they're more, connected than the Israelis. But I always felt like it's a type of a bubble, and we must reach out to the Jews outside of that bubble. And one of the last events we had, before we had to leave and come back home, people still met each other. I remember we had this mingling, small talk, eating, speaking, touching. It was a normal evening and in Manhattan. And at the end of that lecture, a person reached out to me saying with a sheet of paper in his hand. He showed me that paper and it had this X on it. And he told me, Aleph, with such, enthusiasm. Aleph, look, Aleph. And I stared at that X, Aleph, and he was basically showing me his Jewish knowledge. That's all he knew. And he was so proud. I saw the sparks in his eyes. And I said, okay, Aleph, and that was it. I asked him who he is, and I Googled his name afterwards. He's a famous doctor, professor, private practice, very, I would say, successful. I guess he's very rich, very influential. That the level of his, I would say, the academic level, the financial level, the cultural level is very high. The Jewish level, the level of knowledge, the basic things about his heritage, his identity, so low. Aleph, that was it. So I asked him, okay, have you ever heard of the letter Bet? I tried base, the Ivris. Base, Bet, nothing. I took this paper and I wrote Bet on it. I doubled his Jewish knowledge in a minute, and that was it. I took this story back home with me, since it was one of our last big events in America as Mizrachi Shlichim. And I remember that professor because, I asked myself, what kind of father, grandfather will he be? What will his grandchildren know? What are we doing in order to reach out to him too? Our bubble is beautiful, Baruch Hashem. It's a beautiful bubble. I met ultra-Orthodox, modern Orthodox, Zionist people in America. Those are really great, the best. But we have millions of brothers and sisters out there, and all they know is Aleph. That's why this activity is so important. The camps, the lectures, everything you do, and now especially through Zoom, is extremely important. Good luck to all of us. May we have Shnat Briut, Shnat Hatzlacha, Besorot Tovot Mirushalayim. May we see you here soon in Yerushalayim. We miss you. Yerushalayim misses you. Behatzlacha to everyone involved. Behatzlacha להתראות.
Thank you, Sivan. It's such an honor and a privilege for me to introduce this first session. But before we look at the present and the future, looking at the past 5 years, 2016 to 2020, this tenure, Mizrachi, of all of us, the process of reinvigorating and re-inspiring our movement in Israel and around the world. And I want to invite you all, there's a chat on this particular platform. We can't all see each other, there are too many of us to see each other, but feel free to write in, feel free to participate in the chat. that you'll see the feature on your screens. I believe that all of life is first and foremost about people. Life and leadership begins with people. And the place we see this first and foremost is in the Torah and Tanakh. It's about people. Bereshit bara, we just read Bereshit. And very quickly we get to day 6, Adam and Chava. Naseh Adam b'tzalmenu v'kidmutenu. The story of the world is about Adam and Chava. It's about all people. Noach and his wife and family, both the patriarchs and matriarchs of all of humanity. Life is first and foremost about all people. But then the Torah zones in on the Jewish people, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, Yaakov, Leah, Rachel, Yosef, Moshe. It zones in on the Jewish people. And then it zones in on individuals. The Torah is about so many individuals who made a difference. So the Torah, therefore, is about people, all people, the Jewish people, individual people. And we at Mizrachi believe that everything is about people. Everything we hope to continue to achieve is about the people we work with in our professional staff, in our lay leadership, with all our partners in our branches around the world and stakeholders around the world, their lay leadership and professionals. It's about people, our friends and supporters, and all those who connect with us. It's all about people. Indeed, in the famous business book, transformative bestseller of Jim Collins, From Good to Great, he famously says, people get it wrong in life. They try to work out where they're going and then bring the people on board onto the bus. He says, no, first invest in people, bring the right people and quality on the bus, and then work out where you're going. Everything you're going to see over the next 30 to 35 minutes, it's about people. It begins and ends, not with programming, with people. And to introduce our first of the 9 short presentations we're going to be doing, the first one is in many ways something so special to us at Mizrachi. It's our rabbinic and educational leadership programs, getting the young, bright and best in Israel to be inspired to serve their brothers and sisters in communities all around the world, our leadership programs.
Raising the bar in leadership development, World Mizrachi's Lamb School of Leadership is constantly investing in the recruitment of the next generation of rabbinic and educational leaders to serve diaspora Jewry. Part of the success of this program is finding leaders committed to serve their home communities, training them in Israel, and sending them as shlichim back into the field. Through pinpoint searches in Israel and fruitful partnerships with local diaspora communities, we have a cadre of young, talented, and English-speaking educators all ready to serve and lead. Directed by our Head of Leadership Development, Rabbi Hillel Van Leeuwen, and currently in its 5th year, Shalhevet is currently training 50 men and women. Directed by Rabbi Benjamin Zimmerman, our premier rabbinical ordination program has more than 30 participants this year. Designed to train rabbis for Jewish communities abroad, Musmachem offers a 3-year curriculum of halacha, including applications to modern technology, hands-on pastoral training, and enriching educational field trips. World Mizrachi, with the Eretz Chemda Institute, runs a transformative 5-year Manhigut Toranit leadership program directed by Rabbi Doron Perez. This program, currently training 10 couples, prepares top Talmidei Chachamim and rabbinic couples to serve diaspora communities. Due to the untapped potential of high-level female Torah scholarship and leadership around the world, World Mizrachi initiated this 2-year program in partnership with Matan. Lapido is directed by Rabbanit Shani Tarragon and prepares top female educators to teach and lead abroad. 17 women are enrolled this year, focusing on Talmud, Halacha, and Machshavet Yisrael. This joint program with Yeshivat HaKotel, directed by Rabbi Jesse Horn, trains young and talented yeshiva students aspiring to develop their academic and leadership skills. Mechanchem enhances their ability to eventually serve as Jewish educators abroad. Within only 5 years, our leadership programs have produced over 200 highly capable, extremely motivated, and professionally trained alumni, of which more than 90 are currently serving as shlichim and shlichot and making a powerful impact across 5 continents. From Switzerland to New Zealand, from Australia to Argentina, and from the UK to the USA, our alumni serve as youth movement leaders, gap year student coordinators, campus professionals, heads of schools and departments, formal and informal educators, assistant rabbis, and organizational and pulpit rabbis.
is not the story of the Jewish people, a story of a tiny, small people who changed the world beyond imagination. One of my favorite quotes is by American anthropologist Margaret Mead, who said many decades ago, she said, people say that a small group of people cannot change the world. Indeed, she says, it is the only thing that ever has. That is the lesson of Jewish history. And that also is the lesson of our next video, the Merkaz HaShlichut, the Shlichut Center, because people change the world, a small group of people, when they are aligned, where they're synchronized, where the whole is greater than the sum total of the individual parts. And that's what the Merkaz HaShlichut has done, has brought so many incredible organizations together with similar aims to serve diaspora communities together. I want to acknowledge, you'll see the many different organizations. I'd like to acknowledge Bnei Akiva and Torah Mitzion, which are so much part of our building and integrally involved in everything that we do. And had this been an in-person conference with more time, we would have heard detailed reports from all the organizations, but particularly these two. To Bnei Akiva, Maskal, Ro'ia Vikasis, Chairman of the Board, Dov Mai, and all at Bnei Akiva, Torah Mitzion, Mr. Zev Schwartz, Rabbi Yitzchak Neri, Chairman of the Board, and all involved with these wonderful organizations and all the organizations. May we continue to be a small group of people committed to work together with the aim of serving the Jewish people. Ke'ish echad, b'lev echad. Merkaz HaShlichut, the Shlichut Center of the religious Zionist world.
World Mizrachi launched the Religious Zionist Shlichut Center led by Ohad Tal. The center works as an umbrella body, synchronizing the activities of all religious Zionist organizations in Israel that send shlichim around the world, and raising awareness about the importance of shlichut. Our conventions have attracted thousands of potential shlichim and driven an impressive rise in outstanding applicants wishing to serve in communities overseas. The last conference was held in February of this year at the Ramada Hotel in Jerusalem with over 1,500 participants. The Shlichut Center screens and interviews the many candidates and matches shlichim to communities. Every year, about 300 religious Zionist shlichim depart to serve communities across the globe, and World Mizrachi holds a farewell conference for them before they leave. In the summer of 2019, World Mizrachi was privileged to dispatch two of Israel's highest-profile shlichim to date. Renowned media personalities, authors, and educators, Sivan, Rahav, Meir, and Yedidya Meir, and their family, as World Mizrachi shlichim to North America. They lived in New York and spoke in dozens of communities across North America, influencing thousands of people. Sivan continues to act as Mizrachi Scholar in Residence, and Mizrachi hosts her unique Bar Mitzvah program for hundreds of girls and their mothers in Israel and around the world.
What a privilege it is to live in a generation with the state of Israel for more than 70 years now. And one of our major missions at Mizrachi is connecting Jews around the world to the marvel and the miracle of Israel. I often wonder at the incredible fact that I read in a history book that in 1840, not that long ago, 170, 180 years ago, there were only 6,000 Jews who lived in Eretz Israel. Fast forward to 1917, the Balfour Declaration, there were 60,000 Jews living in Eretz Israel through the different aliyot. Fast forward to 1948, the establishment of the State of Israel, a little bit more than 600,000 Jews. Fast forward to 2010, and since then, in the last decade, over 6 million Jews. What an important and significant number living in the state, the land and state of Israel, close to 7 million Jews today. And therefore our mission is to connect with the marvel and miracle of the spiritual transformation, the religious transformation, the cultural transformation, the technological transformation, the educational, social, and so many transformations that Israel stands for. Our mission at World Mizrachi, the third element of these 9 elements, is connecting Jewish communities and individuals to the miracle of Israel.
Aiming to connect Jews to the state of Israel through inspiring Torah and immersive educational experiences in Israel, World Mizrachi organizes major inspirational events, some of them on an annual basis, in sync with Israel's significant milestones. Each year, World Mizrachi celebrates the reunification of our holy city around the English-speaking world, providing speakers, musicians, books, educational materials, and videos. In May of 2017, we marked the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Yerushalayim with a 4-day mega mission, one of the largest Jewish missions to visit Israel. Thousands of rabbis, community leaders, and representatives came together in Klal Yisrael's celebration of this incredible Jubilee milestone. After an opening extravaganza event at Jerusalem's International Convention Center, complete with a keynote address from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs and a live concert by Yaakov Shweki, we led the 300,000-person Yom Yerushalayim flag dance march to the Old City, davened an unforgettable Hallel with all the yeshivot Hester at the Kotel on Yom Yerushalayim morning, met with paratroopers who liberated Jerusalem, held a conference on the future of Jerusalem and Zionism with the spiritual, political, and intellectual leadership of the Jewish world, experienced unique learning tours in and around Jerusalem with expert guides, and enjoyed a moving closing ceremony on the Mount of Olives overlooking Har HaBayit. In addition, we produced a video about the miracles of the Six-Day War, which has over 500,000 views and has been translated into Spanish and Portuguese. In April of 2018, we held a successful Yom HaAtzmaut 70 mission with 200 participants from around the world. This 5-day mission was based in Tel Aviv and enjoyed a multifaceted program: a memorial ceremony at Kfar Etzion, a tour of historic 1948 sites, a spectacular festive event in Hebron, an international conference celebrating Israel's achievements, an uplifting Shabbat in Tel Aviv, an opening ceremony on Yom HaZikaron evening together with Nefesh B'Nefesh, and a reenactment of Israel's Declaration of Independence at the very place it happened, Independence Hall, exactly 70 years later. Besides connecting us all more deeply to our beloved state of Israel, the mission created a sense of global religious Zionist community, with the whole being bigger than the sum of its individual parts. In March of 2019, an international delegation of more than 300 runners represented the Mizrachi and Bnei Akiva team, who gathered from the 4 corners of the earth to run and raise funds in support of Tikvot, an Israeli organization that rehabilitates wounded IDF soldiers through sports. The runners spent an inspirational weekend with us, culminating with a special Shabbat in Jerusalem. In 2018, World Mizrachi launched the first of our 2 educational journeys to Poland to date. Accompanied by renowned educators Rabbi David Milston and Jeremy Kernitz, along with Rabbi Doron Perez, these trips also focused on the history of religious Zionism and its Eastern European founders.
In January 2020, World Mizrachi and Mifalot HaTzionut HaDatit, in partnership with International Young Israel Movement and Koren Publishers, held a sold-out Siyum HaShas event in Jerusalem for over 3,000 people. Tens of thousands more around the world watched it online. Our pre-Siyum program featured shiurim, a panel on women's Torah learning, TED-style talks, and a keynote address by the president of Yeshiva University, Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman. Participants then joined the Hebrew Siyum HaShas event, which included divrei Torah, music, spontaneous dancing, and some inspirational stories of people who had completed Shas, including a blind rabbi who continues to teach Daf Yomi despite his blindness, and an IDF officer who sees his Gemara study as an integral part of being a soldier in a Jewish army in the Jewish state. Another unique World Mizrachi initiative. The present global crisis offers a rare opportunity to reinforce the connection and the sense of mutual responsibility within the Jewish people, and to create intercontinental virtual encounters. Almost everyone is sitting at home in front of Zoom. People have time, and in this new reality, one can initiate simple yet significant encounters for Jews, both in Israel and abroad.
The reality of Israel has afforded the Jewish people another opportunity to fulfill a prophecy, not only to rebuild so much of Israel, but to fulfill the prophecy of Yeshayahu, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. There will come a time again where the Torah will go forth from Yerushalayim, from Zion, and be disseminated around the world. So much so that the sages say, of an unusual expression they use in a few places, Ein Torah, there is something about the Torah in the ambience of Israel which is transformative in some type of mystical and not only rational sense. the only two things that are called in the Torah a morasha, a spiritual inheritance for all Jews. Indeed, the only two things that every Jew bequeaths the next generation and receives from our forebears and parents is two things that the Torah calls a morasha, Torah and the land of Israel. As we all know, the pasuk of Kilat Yaakov, that of the Torah, that is a morasha Kilat Yaakov. The Torah is a morasha for all of the Kilat Yaakov, as we read on Simchat Torah. And of course, as it says in Parshat Va'era, Ve'iveti etchem el haaretz asher nasati et yadi latet otah, I will bring you to the land which I lifted up my hand and swore to you, morasha ani Hashem, as an inheritance. And therefore, the Torah and Eretz Yisrael, this combination of the dual values, the spiritual inheritance of every Jew, what a privilege we have in our generation to be part of this process of Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, the combination of these two morashot, Torah and Eretz Yisrael, connecting Jews through spreading the word of Torah to communities around the world.
Published in Jerusalem and distributed around the world, HaMizrachi is a monthly Torah publication packed with inspiring and insightful Torah Eretz Yisrael content from some of Israel's leading educators and experts. Launched for Yom HaAtzmaut in 2018, 60,000 copies are now distributed in advance of the Chagim to around 1,000 shuls, campuses, and schools worldwide. Now in its third year, HaMizrachi is also available to view and download on our website. Mizrachi has partnered with Manigut Toranit and the Tzurba Meir Institute in Israel to publish in English the systematic method of learning halacha, from its Talmudic sources to modern-day issues. Over 10,000 people participate in the Hebrew program, and now another 2,000 have joined the English program and dedicate time for regular halacha learning. Weekly shiurim take place around the world, and Rabbi Doron Perez, the initiator of the English Tzurba program, presents a weekly shiur streamed live on Mizrachi's Facebook page. World Mizrachi continues to disseminate inspiring and relevant religious Zionist educational material, including multimedia content, books, and publications. We published the first ever English-Hebrew machzor for Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim, in partnership with Koren Publishers, with a wide range of articles from some of the Jewish world's leading thinkers. Other publications include Karnei Orah, a collection of Rav Reinis's writings, From Volozhin to Jerusalem, the autobiography of Rabbi Meir Bar Ilan, The 6-Day War Scroll, the story of the miracles of 1967, a 3-volume encyclopedic compendium of spiritual significance of the miraculous reunification of Jerusalem in Hebrew, the Ingathering and Independence Scroll on the miracles of 1948, Jerusalem, Then, Now, and Forever, a stunning photo album of modern Jerusalem alongside historic photos and quotes. Our newest publication is To Build and to Bond, Living Well in a Jewish Marriage by Rabbi Moshe Berliner, offering practical tools and counseling for couples.
Rabbi Reuven and Rabbanit Shani Tarragon have functioned as the educational directors of Mizrachi over the last 3 years and have made a major difference to so many of our educational programs. Rav Tarragon has driven and initiated many new programs, such as the Mizrachi Speakers Bureau, much of Mizrachi's broad online programming, such as the World Beit Midrash, the Daily Dose on the Daf, and plays a pivotal role in our ongoing programs and initiatives. Rabbanit Shani is not only the director of our Lapido program, but the driver of many programmatic elements of women's scholarship and educational impact in all we do at Mizrachi. Individually and together, Rav Reuven and Rabbanit Shani have made and continue to make a great contribution to Mizrachi's mission of disseminating Torah Eretz Yisrael. Reacting fast to the new reality of COVID-19 and the global need for high-level, online, religious Zionist Torah, World Mizrachi launched an online World Beit Midrash 2 weeks before Pesach. Our programs inspire and uplift during these trying times, reaching many more thousands of people who might otherwise never be exposed to our Torah. The programming continued during Chol HaMoed, then throughout the month of Iyar with special programs for Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut, Lag BaOmer, Yom Yerushalayim, and Shavuot. These were followed by special programs throughout the 3 weeks and a fascinating program on Tish B'Av, exploring keynote on location and important sites in Israel and around the world, as well as a debate about the Temple Mount. Most recently, World Mizrachi produced the Yamim Noraim in Sound and Spirit, 3 programs to inspire during the period of Slichot, Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur. broadcasting for hundreds of hours via Zoom, Facebook Live, and the World Mizrachi website, and cross-posting to many organizations, shuls, and schools around the globe, we offered a wide range of shiurim and Q&A sessions from the Jewish world's leading rabbis and female educators, as well as offering inspirational music. During the 2 weeks leading up to Seder night alone, our broadcasts reached an accumulated audience of more than 200,000 people worldwide, and in recent months, that figure has rocketed to over 800,000. World Mizrachi sends out weekly Divrei Torah videos. Our website and social media channels are reaching more people every week, and recently we have opened our video-on-demand online archive. At Mizrachi, we take great pride in the fact that women play a major role in our programs and publications, including the weekly Divrei Torah videos, the Daily Dose on the Daf, HaMizrachi magazine, our online shiurim and tours, and our speakers and tour guides bureaus. World Mizrachi runs a speakers bureau with hundreds of speakers from Israel, offering Jewish communities around the world assistance in bringing top Israel-based religious Zionist speakers to their shuls, schools, and institutions. One of our projects is Israel 360, now in its third year, reflecting Israel's international reach and Mizrachi's mission of spreading Torah Yisrael across the world. To celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut and Yom Yerushalayim, World Mizrachi brings inspiring Israeli speakers and thinkers to 360 communities during the month of Iyar. These speakers are currently available for online shiurim. With the start of the new cycle of Daf Yomi, World Mizrachi launched the Daily Dose on the Daf WhatsApp project. This is a daily, 2-minute insight on the day's Daf from leading rabbis and educators, and reaches hundreds of learners across the world.
We again regret that we can't see everybody. There's just too many to put on the screen, and we're using a platform to engage us with thousands in Israel and around the world. So please continue writing in the chat, continue engaging, as we hope to be able to engage more in person, as we said, when we have the opportunity, hopefully in the not too distant future. The next element of Mizrachi's activities, the fifth element, is such an important part of what we do. It's the Mizrachi's contribution through its delegates and representatives in Israel's national institutions. We know that this week is the 38th World Zionist Congress. The first one took place 123 years ago, as we all know, in Basel. Herzl convened, as we know, the first Zionist Congress. And here we are, 123 years later, the 38th Congress, with delegates coming in from via online platforms to participate. And we are so blessed to, for so many years, have delegates, leaders who represent us in such important components of these national institutions. The national institutions are those institutions which together founded the State of Israel. The World Zionist Organization in 1897. A few years later, the Keren Kayemet of land purchasing, such a powerful organization still today. The World Zionist Organization, not only Keren Kayemet, but the Jewish agency of the connection between North America and the USA and Israeli Jewry, this very special organization, and also Keren Yesod, connecting Jews from all the federations around the world to Israel. And we are so privileged to continue to once again have succeeded in these elections that many of you were part of, and to be able to once again have leaders and shlichim in Israel's national institutions.
Avraham Duvdevani, or as he is fondly known, Duvdev, has been Mizrachi's senior representative in Israel's national institutions for many years. One of the liberators of the Old City of Jerusalem during the Six-Day War, Duvdev has served over the last 5 years a second tenure as chairman of the World Zionist Organization, one of the most prestigious and influential positions within these institutions. He has focused on significantly expanding the Zionist activity of the organization and has greatly grown the budget to meet these ever-changing needs.
Gael Grunwald is the chairman of the Rural Growth and Development Department of the World Zionist Organization. This impactful department invests major funds on an annual basis into building new settlements all over Israel, as well as expanding the infrastructure of existing ones. Gael's work is the embodiment of Mitzvat Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, the commandment to settle the land on a daily and ongoing basis. One of his many achievements has been laying the foundations for the new Yishuv in the Golan Heights, Trump Heights, honoring President Trump for his historic acts of both moving the American embassy to Jerusalem and recognizing Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights.
Rav Yechiel Wasserman runs the Center for Religious Affairs in the Diaspora. This center focuses on strengthening Jewish life and identity in Jewish communities around the world, particularly small communities where this assistance is most necessary. The center's major event is an annual rabbinic conference in Jerusalem, attended by over 250 rabbis and rebbetzins from over 35 countries, predominantly in Europe, who focus on dealing with the vast challenges that rabbinic leaders across the globe face today.
Campus leadership, the sixth part of this presentation. We all know that every generation has its unique challenges. As the world continues to move at such a fast pace, we see almost even within a generation, there are additional challenges and ways that we all need to adapt ourselves, the Torah world, all those in leadership positions, to make sure that whatever it is we're wishing to convey is conveyed in a way that are nishma'im to the younger generation with the challenges that they're facing and our relevance to addressing them. And it's for this reason that campus leadership, Yavneh, so much part of the Religious Zionist world's mission, is something we've invested heavily in the last number of years and intend to continue investing. The next generation, passing the torch on, dealing with their challenges and addressing them in a relevant way, is ultimately what education is about. And the next clip of campus leadership.
In partnership with the OU, World Mizrachi has launched Yavneh, a student leadership initiative across some 45 college campuses in North America. The rebranded Yavneh, under the leadership of Rabbi Yonatan Shulman, works with hundreds of gap year students in Israel and thereafter on campus to empower young leaders to champion the cause of Jewish identity and destiny in the face of the twin scourges of assimilation and the delegitimization of Israel. World Mizrachi is also focusing on the critical college campus stage of life and runs 2 annual programs in Israel for students from abroad. The Summer in Jerusalem internship program, which hosts some 70 students, a handful of which made Aliyah over the past summer, for a dynamic 7-week internship experience, with Beit Midrash programming in the evenings, and the Winter Break Recharge program, which brings to Israel around 100 students who recharge their spiritual batteries, deepen their connection to Israel, and commit to their leadership responsibilities during their years as students on campus. In partnership with the Orthodox Union's campus program, JLIC, World Mizrachi is building a warm and supportive Jewish home on campuses across Israel to serve the Jewish and communal needs of thousands of Jews from diaspora communities who choose to study in Israel. Our mission is to advance Jewish education leadership and community for a new generation of college students in Israel. Beit Mizrachi currently runs 2 programs. One at IDC Herzliya under the leadership of Rabbi Josh and Rabbanit Margot Batwinik, and one at Bar Ilan University under the leadership of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanit Chagit Peles, serving approximately 3,000 overseas students in total. In addition, for the past 2 years we've partnered with the RRG Beit Midrash at Hebrew University, led by Rabbi Yonatan Yudrin, and run joint programs for their Semester Abroad student program. Together with the OU-JLIC, World Mizrachi's Shalhevet program now offers a specialized campus fellowship, a year-long training program for couples focused on work with North American college students. The program consists of group meetings once per month, as well as hands-on work with college students in Israel tailored to each couple's interests at IDC, Bar Ilan, and Hebrew University. The fellows are prioritized for JLIC jobs in the fall of 2021 and beyond.
Few things are more transformative potentially than the gap year in Israel. It's often an exponential turning point in someone's life because it's an interaction at a young and impressionable age, leaving home. Thousands of young men and women from across the Orthodox world every year, coming to Israel and being able to experience Am Yisrael, diaspora Jews and Israel together, Eretz Yisrael and Medinat Yisrael, and of course, the power of Torah Yisrael. This last year has given us a tremendous opportunity at Mizrachi, particularly to involve ourselves and develop our Yeshivot and Midrashot Seminaries department to take upon this mission of an ongoing investment in this year in Israel, hopefully the many years of studying Israel, as an opportunity to play a role in shaping and partnering with the leadership growth of young men and women in Israel and communities around the world, our Yeshiva and Midrasha department.
World Mizrachi now serves as a representative body to MASA on behalf of the 65 MASA-accredited Torah schools. Within a short time, we have elicited tremendous results both as a lobby group of the Yeshivot and Midrashot to MASA, as well as functioning as a more effective way for MASA to interact with the many schools. As a lobby group, we managed to ensure the replacement of significant money of intended MASA budget cuts, which would have adversely affected the MASA subsidy grant to our schools. In the process, World Mizrachi secured $1.5 million in matching funds for students, enabling hundreds of students in need of financial support to participate in their chosen program. We now needed to assist the Yeshivot and Midrashot in raising the matching funds and much more. World Mizrachi then launched its emergency campaign for Yeshivot and Midrashot on behalf of over 50 Torah institutions operating gap year programs in Israel, which raised collectively a whopping $5 million for these institutions. This ensured funding not only to unlock the matching funding for MASA scholarships, but to also assist Yeshivot and Midrashot themselves at this challenging COVID-19 time so that no deserving student be denied the amazing gap year in Israel. Following the campaign, we launched a new department to continually serve and support Yeshivot and Midrashot in Israel, which cater to overseas students. We intend to continue this annual campaign and are fully committed to strengthening Torah learning in Israel and the immersive gap year experience, which is critical to our mission, nurturing a future generation of Jewish leaders and impacting on the destiny of global Jewry.
Who could have imagined that so soon after the Shoah, the ugly head of anti-Semitism is rearing its head in the most powerful and unexpected ways? Classic anti-Semitism, once again, of hatred of Jews just for being Jews, is also on the rise. But also this generation has seen an unusual and unexpected expression of anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, the delegitimization of the very right of the state of Israel to exist as a nation amongst the nations. The famous statement, Abba Eban, famously said, the difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is this. Anti-Semitism, traditional anti-Semitism, is denying the individual Jew, individual civic and civil rights to the society that they belong in. Anti-Zionism is denying the collective Jew national rights to have a right to their own land, their own place collectively under the sun that every other nation enjoys. That is something at Mizrachi, and indeed all organizations in some way need to be cognizant of. And we are investing heavily over this last year and going forward in dealing with the scourge in creative ways, in ways of engaging multiple Jews around the world in dealing technologically and immediately with these challenges. Israel Advocacy, a department at World Mizrachi.
World Mizrachi developed a live satire comedy show in English with two of Israel's leading Anglo comedians, Noam Jacobson and Gadi Weisbart. Aiming to counter the delegitimization Israel regularly undergoes in world media, Stayin' Alive, based on sophisticated satire and humor, went on a world tour and enjoyed great success with sold-out crowds in several major communities. There is a constant and sharp rise in anti-Semitism worldwide, also manifested by the increasing display of hatred against the State of Israel and IDF soldiers, and further spiking in the wake of COVID-19. This anti-Semitic activity is affecting Jewish and national identity among young people, both in Israel and around the world, and undermines the relationship between diaspora Jews and Israel. led by IDF Colonel in Reserve Yalon Farhi. Together Online, a partnership between World Mizrachi and Shinui Kivun, which has significant expertise in combating anti-Israel phenomena, is developing a digital platform to empower people to play a proactive, practical role in fighting the scourge of anti-Semitism.
The ninth and penultimate video to focus on are our special projects, welfare projects. It's true that Mizrachi is first and foremost an educational organization, ideologically driven to disseminate the values that we believe in Israel and around the world. But every organization, it behooves us to have an element of tzedakah, an element of social responsibility, of welfare, of sensitivity to those less fortunate around us, or those who go out of their way to do so much for the Jewish people. And therefore we have a number of special projects whose aim it is to have social sensitivity, solidarity, and the expression of camaraderie and sensitivity to those around us. Our special projects, followed by a word of our global branches that I will conclude this presentation with. Special projects.
Every year before Pesach, World Mizrachi is privileged to be able to assist hundreds of families under great financial stress in order to put food on the table as part of our Kimcha de Pesach Ma'ot Chitim project. Managed by our office manager, Maxine Pachenik, the money donated goes in its entirety to people in need as checks or food vouchers. Particularly during this year with COVID-19 crisis, with even greater needs and notwithstanding near total lockdown in Israel, we were able to assist almost 200 needy families. World Mizrachi has partnered with International Young Israel and the ZOA to provide 10,000 soldiers in outlying army bases on Israel's periphery every year before Purim with delicious Mishloach Manot gifts. This project is managed by Sally Sachs as an act of brotherhood and solidarity between communities around the world and IDF soldiers around the country in the spirit of Purim. In 2020, World Mizrachi partnered with Rabbi Shalom Hammer's Makom Shutaf initiative, which advocates tolerance and unity between religious and secular Jews in Israel. Focusing on the non-observant Israelis in kibbutzim and small towns through workshops for all ages, interactive lectures, bar and bat mitzvah programs, family sessions, training conferences, meeting with pre-army preparatory programs, and more, Makom Shutaf promotes a much-needed, loving, embracing, and engaging Judaism in Israel today.
Last, but certainly not least, and in many ways, the most important of these 10 elements of what Mizrachi is involved in, so important is the development and investment in our global branches to serve them and build our global movement together, that the entire next hour is dedicated to them, the 12 different national movements of Mizrachi around the world, and to their leaders to share very briefly clips that we've put together to share the tremendous impact that they are having. And this is one of the most important things to us at Mizrachi. We said in the beginning, I end how we began. Everything begins and ends with people. The people in Israel and the people around the world. And we invest heavily in working together to nurture leadership in the communities, to collaborate together, to synchronize together, to ensure that we're in sync and totally aligned in the mission that we're trying to do. Strengthen existing branches, building together new branches, and continuing to grow together, the people to take responsibility, to work in tandem with us, to continue the impact of our global mission. And I would like to end this first session with a very special thank you to those people who have labored days and weeks and months on end to put this first session and the many sessions, 2 more today, and throughout this week together, to the people, Ohad Tal, Rabbi Hillel Van Leeuwen, Daniel Cohen, Johnny Lipser, Maxine Pachenik, Suzanne Hoffman, and others in our staff, Shimshon Seligson, Daniel and Jerusalem Media Group. So many of you have had sleepless nights, day in and day out. Thank God for Shabbat, to be able to put this first session together and the many to come. life and leadership begins and ends with people. Thank you to you for joining this first session. Please stay with us. Within the next minute or two, we will be beginning our second session, which is indeed the people around the world who are making a difference, the global branches that we invest in, the global branches which themselves take such responsibility to do so much in their communities, who all together form the flame of Torah Eretz Yisrael, which is so critical to everything we do at Mizrachi. Thank you for joining us for this first session of our 5-year Global Activities Report of the Mizrachi World Movement.
Thank you for being with us today for the Global Mizrachi Summit. Over the past 5 years, Mizrachi has been re-energized, renewed, and reinvigorated. Our branches across the globe have been part of our vision and mission. Join us now for presentations from our international branches, hosted by media personality and Mizrachi scholar-in-residence Sivan, Rahav, Meir.
Shalom lekulam. It is my honor to address the Mizrachi Global Summit. This event celebrates the past, present, and future of the Jewish people. Together, Jews from around the world are tasked with taking in the wisdom and experience of past generations and using them to infuse our Jewish communities with a greater sense of responsibility. Building a Jewish world for the 21st century requires the full collective energy of the Jewish people. It calls for us to create new ways to build and grow Jewish identity and connection. At the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs, we are here to move forward this bold vision with you. I thank you, Mizrachi Olami, for your continued partnership and important work. I look forward to growing our work together in the coming days and wish you all much הצלחה. תודה רבה.
ועדת המזרחי היקרה. We are now in a very challenging time of Corona. No one knows exactly what will be in the future, but one thing we know. Be'ezrat Hashem, we sure that all this Corona after the Corona. We won't be in the same place like we were before the Corona. Hashem is leading the world to a better place. We see people that are trying to be better in this thing, in that thing, that concentrate more on the family, that are more sensitive for old people, for sick people, that people understand who is leading our world. We sure that Be'ezrat Hashem, after the Corona, will be in a better place. We'll be in a higher place. Also us, all Am Yisrael, all the world. No one wants the Corona. But Be'ezrat Hashem will succeed also this tzara, this trouble, to develop Am Yisrael and all the world. And Mizrachi is so important always, but Mizrachi is so important right now to see all the things that Mizrachi is doing and helping Jewish people and all the world in the right way to connect between Torah and life and to put everything together and to try to bring Am Yisrael and all the world to a higher level, to be closer to Hashem, to be better people. So Be'ezrat Hashem, that all these unbelievable things of the Mizrachi will continue, will be successful. שתהיה ברכה והצלחה, and יישר כוח לרב פרץ, and for everyone that leading us in the Mizrachi, שתהיה ברכת השם עליכם.
Welcome everyone. ערב טוב מירושלים. Shalom. ברוכים הבאים. And thank you. More than 150 participants, people with us now from all over the world. Welcome to this special event. We just came back from America a few months ago after almost 1 year of shlichut as World Mizrachi Shlichim to North America. And I will elaborate later. I will tell you afterwards about the great things, Rabbi Doron, and the great stuff, what they do all over the world. My headline, in 3 words, if I should in a way conclude, summarize that journey, Am Yisrael Chai. I met our brothers and sisters all over the world. We saw them in Canada, Montreal, Toronto. We saw them in California and Florida, Chicago, Maryland, dozens of communities all over North America. It was very special, very inspiring, very uplifting. And I will share a few stories during this evening. We want to start our journey in Argentina. Let's hear Rav Shaliach to Latin America, Rav Tzvi Elon, and President of the community, Ryan Fine. Please.
The La Casa Mizrachi Kehila in Argentina was founded 5 years ago. After a few young community members became Balei Tshuva through the religious Zionist circles, they realized the lack of Dati Leumi programming within several major Jewish communities in Argentina. What started with a small Kabbalat Shabbat has developed into a community with hundreds of members. And the shul, which was based at first on university students, grew to include all ages and entire families as well. Over the past 2 years, we have reopened the community's youth movement, led also by the Shlichim of Mizrachi, Bnei Akiva, and Torah Mitzion, alongside local forces. Today, each Kabbalat Shabbat service draws some 150 people, and the shul is packed on Shabbat morning too. Many of those who come to shul in the morning stay at Mizrachi until Motza'ei Shabbat, enjoying lunch, shiurim, tefillot, and a Karlbach-style Havdalah, which is the highlight of the week, with more than 100 participants dancing and singing each week. During the week, there are many halacha and parsha shiurim. For those interested in Aliyah, we hold Aliyah workshops. Many members of the community have made Aliyah over the past couple of years, including most of our board members. We work closely with almost all formal Jewish schools in Argentina, especially around the special days of Iyar, but also throughout the year. Promoting religious Zionist values of Torah with Derech Eretz, Torah of life. Historically, Mizrachi was such a success in Argentina that almost all alumni made Aliyah, and the community forgot all about Mizrachi. In recent years, there is a great awakening, and the community here is thirsty for more.
Thank you. Thank you, Argentina. Moving forward. But I want to share something with you. It's not, by chance. I chose that background, the Western Wall, the Kotel. I'm not really there. It's my house. But I chose that background since I know how much you miss the Kotel, you miss Israel. And I want to tell you something. Israel misses you too. Yeah. Whenever I go to the Kotel, but also when I go to Machne Yehuda market, other holy places, we miss you. We miss the English and the French and the Spanish. We miss the Israeli tourists, the Jewish tourists. And Yerushalayim is empty without you. It's your home too. A few days ago, I had a Zoom meeting with the women of Panama. And at the end of the lecture, one of the women said, "Are you in Yerushalayim now?" I said, "Yes." "Can you show us Yerushalayim?" And what I did was, I took the camera, that camera. I just turned it, I showed her the view out of my window. Very simple, nothing, a few trees and a few houses, and that's all you see. She was so excited. I think she cried. Yeah, she was so, touched. And other women were standing, clapping, almost shouting. They saw Yerushalayim. They weren't here for I think almost a year. The gates are locked, unfortunately. You can't come, but it's your home too, and you miss your home. And whenever I speak to communities abroad, and I do it a lot lately through Zoom, that's my message. It's your home. We're waiting for you here. Next, I would say, next stop, next place in our journey, Australia. President Danny Lam includes Melbourne, Danny Lam, Perth, Rav Marcus Solomon, and Sydney, Rav Shua Solomon. Bevakasha.
The history of Mizrachi in Melbourne goes back to 1943. Now, to expand Mizrachi in Australia, we were succeeded by the Perth Mizrachi, established by Rabbi Marcus Solomon, and subsequently the Mizrachi Synagogue in Sydney became part of Mizrachi Australia with the leadership of Rabbi Solomon in Sydney, 2 Rabbi Solomons. In each city, the 3 cities, Bnei Akiva is a very solid foundation for the Mizrachi movement. Mizrachi is the sniff for Bnei Akiva, Kolel Torah Mitzion in Perth, Sydney, in Melbourne. We in Melbourne as well established a religious Zionist school called Yavneh, commenced in 1964. Nearly all our graduates go on to Bnei Akiva programs, yeshiva programs, midrashah programs. We have support from Melbourne to Perth and to Sydney. We have a Mizrachi Australia conference annually, bringing together all the Hesder Bachurim who staff our Kollel, bringing together the Bat Ami girls, Shnat Sherut girls, bringing together our Bnei Akiva Shlichim in Melbourne, Sydney, Perth. One of the important features of religious Zionist leadership is to ensure that there is similar leadership extended into the communal organisations. It's fundamental that we have to reach out and help the wider community appreciate for communal organisations to work within a Torah framework. It doesn't mean that everybody has to meet that standard, but the organisations have to function that way. What I see as the future is a growing engagement with World Mizrachi centered in Beit Meir in Yerushalayim to provide the leadership, the Torah scholarship, and the Zionist support for our activities in Chutz La'aretz, and to all work together to make a stronger world Zionist movement. Wishing everybody Hatzlacha as we meet together under these restricted circumstances. Mirza Hashem, Shana Haba will all be in Yerushalayim, and we will be working together.
Amen, amen. Beautiful. The video you saw, it was mentioned, the word shlichim. I think it's really inspiring. The fact we sent people, import, export, usually it's about commercial things. No, Israel sends out people. It usually never happens. I don't think Italy sends Italian people to other places in order to be Italian shlichim. Or I don't know, Norway sends Norway. I mean, usually it doesn't happen. And Israel sends people to, to all over the world because it has a story, because what we're building here, the Jewish state, as I said, doesn't belong to us. It belongs to all of you together, to us in a broader way of the word us. The meaning is the whole Jewish nation. And that's why it's so important what those shlichim, what they do. I never thought about it when I was still an Israeli, native Israeli. Before we went on shlichut, I didn't realize how important it is. I met really hundreds of people sharing stories about shlichim that lived in their community. Sometimes it happened 50 years ago. Oh, there was a shaliach here. Yeah, he influenced my daughter. Yeah, she influenced my son. Yeah, they went to this movement, that organization. We still remember the party they arranged for Hanukkah 20 years ago. Wherever you go, those shlichim they become communal leaders. And sometimes even here in Israel, I meet people saying, I made Aliyah. It's all thanks to that shaliach, to that shlicha. 30 years ago, they don't even have a clue. They don't know about it. It took me 5 years after they left, but I still remember what they did, and it changed my life. So this mif'al of shlichim is so important. We saw it, now we saw it with our own eyes, how beautiful and inspiring it is. Moving forward to Austria, President Nehemiah Gang. Let's hear Austria, please.
Mizrachi Austria is headed by Mr. Nehemiah Gang. The base for all religious Zionist activity is Vienna's Mizrachi Shul. The community is led by the Dayan, Rabbi Yosef Pardes, who is highly respected by all streams of the community in Vienna. Rabbi Pardes delivers many Torah classes and recently has moved his classes to Zoom, where his international audience tune in from all over the world. At the Mizrachi Shul, we hold regular tefillot on weekdays and Shabbatot and Chagim, Tikkun Leil Shavuot, and more. On Shabbatot, we run mini Mizrachi programs for children in Shul, complete with learning, a shiur, and singing. Mizrachi Austria hosts communal celebrations for Hanukkah and Purim, and many locals join the tourists we host for the Seder night each year. Our annual Central Communal Zionist event is on Yom Ha'atzmaut, with the Chief Rabbi, the Community President, and the Israeli Ambassador in attendance. We participate annually in raising funds for the Hesder Yeshivot and for the Mishloach Manot Drive for IDF soldiers. We also run the Zionist Federation in Austria. We have an active Bnei Akiva chapter, and we send out a weekly newsletter with Divrei Torah and programming. In addition, Mizrachi Austria also publishes a kosher items list in 3 languages, a list which is very popular among tourists.
Thank you. Kol hakavod. I want to share something personal. Before I started working with Mizrachi movement, I thought it belongs, I'm ashamed to say it now, but I thought it's part of our history. Mizrachi, what an ancient name, something, from Rav Kook's days. Even people here in Israel, when I told them, Mizrachi Shlichim, we're going on Shlichut, Mizrachi, Yemima Mizrachi, oh, you work with Yemima Mizrachi. No, Mizrachi. I think what Rav Doron is doing in the last few years is changing that equation, that assumption that Mizrachi belongs to the past. And just like you see the slogan that is written here, past, present, and future. We see it everywhere. It's the beautiful stuff, the talented people around him, Rabbi Reuven Taragin, his wife Shani, Susan and Maxine, Ohad and Daniel, Joni, I guess I forget other talented people that are, Hillel, obviously, Hillel, and all the people around, in this office in Yerushalayim, the center of Yerushalayim, working so hard. And in a way, I think, it changes. You see the magazine, wherever I go, I saw it in so many shuls. I remember we spent Rosh Hashanah in Leeds, okay? It's not London, it's not Manchester, it's Leeds. You see hundreds of Jews in Leeds, they take out that magazine, they take it home with us. I don't know how much, Jewish books, how many Jewish books do they have there, okay? That's their Jewish education, that well-designed new magazine all over the world. Mizrachi, thank you for that too. And Esther also takes care of that magazine. I will maybe remember other names afterwards. I'm sorry if I forget anyone, but that's really an empire. It became an empire once again. And now it's even the Congress. You know, I covered Israeli politics for years. I thought I know something about politics, but then I realized, no, you know nothing. The Knesset is nothing if you compare it to the World Jewish Congress. So yeah, great achievements there too. And moving forward to Brazil. Now, President Rafael Antaki, please, bevakasha.
Mizrachi Brazil is based in Rio de Janeiro, directed by Mr. Rafael Antaki. Rafael, who also serves as the president of the local Bar Ilan school, the only religious Jewish school in Rio, was a madrich and later a treasurer at Bnei Akiva, and was responsible with a group of alumni for the building of the Bnei Akiva Shul. The Bar Ilan school functions as the beating heart at the center of the religious Zionist community in Rio. The local Bnei Akiva chapter operates out of the school itself. In addition, the school has 2 shuls inside it, as well as a kosher restaurant, a mikveh, and the Rio Kollel, which is also responsible for the city's Eruv. While Bar Ilan is the only religious school in Rio, the majority of students come from non-observant homes. This allows Mizrachi to do extremely important kiruv work at the forefront of the battle for Jewish identity, and to build strong connections within the various contingents of all the city's congregations. There are between 15,000 and 20,000 Jews in Rio today, but only some 2,000 Jewish children attend the local Jewish school system. Assimilation rates are high. However, inside the Mizrachi's Bar Ilan community, and with the active help of Bnei Akiva, we have excellent tools to bring people closer to their religion and to strengthen their identity. In recent years, more than 100 students from the school have made Aliyah to Israel, and while seeing so many families pack and move makes a significantly positive impact on the community, our school enrollment dropped from 450 students to 350, a 20% decrease. The long-lasting educational effects are powerful. However, as we know, this decrease results from good decisions, and this empowers us and fortifies our faith that we are on the right track in our kiruv work of spreading the ideal of Torah and Avodah.
Thank you. Moving forward to Canada, I had the privilege, the zchut, of being there 3 times. We had so many plans. Rabbi Elon Meir, what a leader. You're doing so much, really, the important work there. I saw the Ulpana, the high school, the youth movements, the federations. I met so many people in shuls and outside of shul communities in Canada. I even recorded a few reports to the Israeli TV about what's going on there. And I remember one moment. It was when Dov Meir invited us to his house, Dov and his wife. What a tasty, great meal. Remember that world when we can sit 50 people all together, eating together, chatting, mingling, touching each other. And one of the guests was a local, an Israeli consul. He worked for the embassy. And he, at the middle of the meal, I saw him was standing up saying, you know, I lived in Israel for years. I served in a special unit in the army, the IDF. I never heard Tfilah Leshlom Chayalei Tzahal until I arrived to this community in Canada. I'm 30 years old. I'm here with my wife and kids, and I never heard it in Israel. I had to go, to arrive to Canada in order to know something like this exists. I fought for Israel for 3 years, knowing nothing about those who pray and daven for me out there. Sometimes the global work also affects the Israelis. We don't know much. We don't know enough here in Israel. Sometimes you help us out there too. So let's hear about the great things that are going on now in Canada. Bevakasha.
The past few years have been really exciting for Mizrachi Canada. Our mission has always been to put religious Zionism at the forefront of our community, and over the past few years we have greatly expanded the scope of our activities in a meaningful way. With hundreds of events, shiurim, lectures, scholars and residents that thousands of our community members have participated in, we've had concerts and comedy shows, all part of bringing the religious Zionist experience to our community. But the focal point has always been our mass Yom Ha'atzmaut event. We've been expanding this event to celebrate Yom HaZikaron in a more meaningful way, and over the past few years, we've been getting thousands of people to come and celebrate Israel. In honor of Israel's 70th anniversary, we dedicated Sifrei Torah from across Canada to army bases and defense locations and new communities across Israel. The services we offer our community create a living bridge between the State of Israel and Canada. We connect our donors to over 250 different non-for-profits, sending millions of dollars annually to build up the State of Israel. We started Canada's first Yoatzot Halacha program that supports families in areas of Taharat HaMishpacha and marriage and education. We support our students who are spending a year in Israel by giving out scholarships. We've given out over $100,000 annually to students spending a year in Israel. We support and connect the Religious Zionist network of institutions in order to create a strong, powerful voice promoting religious Zionism. Under the COVID-19 pandemic, we've continued to support and offer our community a strong connection to the State of Israel. While virtual, we're able to connect our community through online events, through online tefillot, through educational portals for family life support, as well as parades and other fan activities. We can't wait to see how Mizrachi grows over the next few years.
Thank you, Rabbi Meir. And as someone, I guess we can identify with that feeling, you and I, and so many people here, we used to fly every week, just to be wherever we want. And now the gates are locked, but as you see, we all try to work hard in order to be closer, although we can't meet each other, we can't fly and really visit those communities. The next community is the Chicago community. I had the privilege of being there twice during our shlichut as Mizrachi shlichim. The first time it was the Museum of Tolerance event with the mayor of Chicago, something very fancy. The second time, Rabbi Jerry Eisenberg, I thank you for hosting me at your house, you, your wife, and thank you for taking me to all those religious, fascinating places in Chicago, the schools, high schools, one academic center I remember, and I truly have great memories from what you're trying to do in Chicago. I remember the evening we had there with your community. And I also remember a sentence I heard there. I spoke with the local Israelis. Many Israelis also live there. It's also a mission to make them engaged and involved. And someone told me, I take notes wherever I go. So someone in Chicago, I don't remember the name, but he explained what a good Jew is. Ma ze Yehudi tov? What is a good Jew? And his sentence was, a good Jew always tries to be a better Jew. I liked it. I take it home with me to Yerushalayim. And now let's see Rabbi Eisenberg from Chicago.
We at Mizrachi, Religious Zionists of Chicago, are proud of our recent activities. Our Kol Shabbat e-newsletter is sent to 926 subscribers each week. In the Chicago area, over 1,400 HaMizrachi magazines are distributed to 33 different shuls, schools, and stores. Our Rosh Hashanah Sefer Brachot, Yemei Iyun, Shabbatonim, and Foundations of Religious Zionism monthly lectures are focal points of our Religious Zionist Kehillah. A month before the pandemic arrived, 300 attended our annual Beit Cafe, which attracts a younger crowd. In the past, it reached sold-out capacity twice, and twice presented a USA national premiere, Mizrachi UK's Dreams of a Nation, and Staying Alive, the World Mizrachi-produced anti-BDS comedy show. Our community-wide Yom Yerushalayim celebrations are attended by over 300. They feature a tefillah, chagigit, and celebration, as well as a youth art contest, which received 218 entries over the past 5 years. This year's virtual Heart of a Nation presentation had 1,200 views. For Yom Yerushalayim 3 years ago, we distributed 1,000 ribbons throughout Chicago and suburbs. Block after block saw trees and fences bedecked with gold ribbons, drawing attention to the 50th anniversary of Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, our eternal, undivided capital. That same year, immediately after the World Mizrachi celebration of Yom Yerushalayim, we held our own reunion in Yerushalayim of Chicagolim, Chicagoans who have made Aliyah, with over 340 participants. There was representation of Olim from Chicago in each Aliyah year but two since 1961. This year, we built the Chicago Mizrachi Pinach Haman Itamar, a project launched at a dessert reception honoring the Chayalim Bodedim from our community. We will provide for its ongoing maintenance, assuring that the Pinach Hama is always ready to serve the valiant IDF soldiers. Over 100 people zoomed in for our inaugural Together as One program, connecting the religious Zionist communities of Chicago and the Kiryat Gat region. Chicago worked hard to help the Orthodox Israel Coalition Mizrachi elect significantly more delegates to the World Zionist Congress than previously. And we are excited about our future plans, which include continuing the remodeling of our RZC Center building and our support of Bnei Akiva and Camp Mosheva, expanding programming to college-age students and young adults, and Be'ezrat Hashem, finding innovative ways to advance Aliyah, Israel advocacy, and religious Zionist ideals.
Thank you, Rabbi Eisenberg, Chicago. Moving forward to France, but I think I want to share one idea I heard from Rabbi Sachs. May Hashem send him refuah shlema, speedy recovery. Rav Yaakov Tzvi Ben Liba, Jonathan Sachs, such a friend of World Mizrachi Movement. And he said at the beginning of that crisis, when you just started facing that challenge called COVID-19, Corona, when it just started, he said, maybe we have a new opportunity for Mesirut Nefesh, for self-devotion. Usually we think it belongs to the past, right? We read it in history books. Oh yeah, they suffered during the Holocaust. They had pogroms, anti-Semitism. But now it's the beginning of our redemption. Everything is cozy and nice. And in Israel and abroad, other times, new days. But now we see sometimes that we should also show, I would say, this is our nisayon. This is, our generation. This is our opportunity to show how devoted we are, how caring we are. It's all the things that were so, basic, community, being together, singing, praying, everything has changed. This is our nisayon, our generation. May we be'ezrat Hashem succeed in this nisayon. And let's hear what's going on in one of the communities. Unfortunately, many of the members passed away there, France. We want to hear a few words from the head of France desk, Rav Avram Derry. Bevakasha.
French Jewry is the world's third largest Jewish community, after Israel and the United States, and the largest one in Europe. For many years, the French Mizrachi branch has been headed by Mr. Gaston Sayada. A few years ago, Paul Fitoussi from Marseille started coordinating Mizrachi activities there, and most recently, World Mizrachi has decided to open a French desk to deal specifically with the needs of the French Zionist communities. The Mizrachi France desk, headed by Rabbi Avraham Derry, cooperates with a rabbinic organization called Shadarim, led by Rav Shmuel Eliyahu, and with Qualita, an umbrella organization which for years has been working on improving the absorption of French Olim in Israel. In an effort to embrace French Jewry and connect to them, and bring the Torah of Eretz Yisrael, Mizrachi has devised a threefold plan for the near future, planned to commence once global conditions allow it. Once the skies reopen, we plan to run 20 short missions a year to France, sending Mizrachi Rabbanim and Rabbaniyot as shlichim to deliver shiurim in different communities on Shabbatot, give sermons, run activities and teach classes in shuls, schools, and at local JCCs. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, Mizrachi ran several pilot short shlichuyot to Paris and Marseille, which were very well received. It is no secret that Aliyah is challenging, and especially for those who do not speak Hebrew and come from a different culture. Mizrachi is acting to turn Israeli communities into live, warm, and supportive absorption centers for French Olim. To date, numerous religious Zionist Israeli communities have been expressing their willingness to serve future French Olim. Mizrachi will assist these communities financially and logistically in the process of training their rabbis, absorption coordinators and lay leaders, and in preparing the community for this critically important Zionist task. The Jewish community in France is accustomed to public gatherings and community events such as the late Chief Rabbi Shitruk's initiative Yom HaTorah, 12 Hours for Israel, artist performances, and trade fairs. Such events galvanize the community around joint ideals and play a major role in cultivating their Jewish and Zionist identities. Until we can hold physical gatherings, Mizrachi will run virtual events online, such as Slichot Night, Simchat Beit HaShoeva, Shabbat Aliyah Lech Lecha, Chanukah, and Purim events, a guide to koshering utensils for Pesach, celebrations of Independence Day and Jerusalem Day, Lag BaOmer, a Holocaust history seminar, and more.
I thought I know everything about the activities of that movement, but I learn new things here, and I'm surprised, Baruch Hashem, in a positive way. Someone texted me, how can you ignore the donation, what French Judaism did for you? So I'll just share a personal story. When I was 15, I was part of a delegation, a mishlachat to friends. I was completely secular, and I started keeping kashrut. I stopped eating chametz while we met the Jewish communities of Nice, the middle of Chol HaMoed, okay? The middle of Chol HaMoed, I was 15, like 24 years ago. I met the French community, the style, the wisdom, the spirit, their atmosphere, and I fell in love. Baruch Hashem, at the middle of Chol HaMoed, I stopped eating chametz. I started eating kasher lePesach. It had many kitniyot back then. I had no idea I'm Ashkenazi, but that was part of, that's part of my story. So thank you for that too. And we're moving. Next place is Mexico. We want to hear Rav Tzvi Elon and local rabbis and community presidents from Mexico. Go ahead.
The Jewish community in Mexico City numbers about 50,000 Jews. It is a relatively new community, only 120 years old. At the beginning of the 20th century, Jews emigrated here from various places: Turkey, Syria, Germany, Poland, and Russia. Each group retained its original identity, and to this day, the Jews are associated with communities by origin: a Turkish community, an Ashkenazi community, a German conservative community, and a Syrian community divided in two, those from Aleppo and those from Damascus. While all communities are organized in a central committee, each has its own shuls and local rabbi. And just as the congregations work through a central committee, the rabbis of all the congregations cooperate in good friendships. The Ashkenazi community, as in Israeli society, is made up of religious, traditional, and secular people. But here, they are all members of the synagogue, which is an essential component of their Jewish and Zionist identity. Mizrachi has been active mainly among the Ashkenazi community, which makes up a third of Mexican Jewry since its inception. The Yavneh school and the Bnei Akiva movement functioned for years as the city's religious Zionist center. Some 40 years ago, changes took place when the Syrian community opened a Beit Midrash, yeshivot, kollalim, and schools, and as a result, Mizrachi has gradually weakened. Over the course of the past 10 years, Mizrachi Mexico has returned to the forefront of the stage and resumed its activities, mainly within the Ashkenazi community. Kollel Torah Mitzion returned to operate in the city. Shir Leumi girls came out to strengthen the Bnei Akiva branch and the school, and educational and rabbinic shlichim families who identify with the religious Zionist agenda took up key positions in the community's institutions. Because the Ashkenazi community here is distinctly Zionist, the religious Zionist ideology and its way of life fit naturally with what people here want, and Mizrachi today is influential everywhere. Our Independence Day and Jerusalem Day prayers are strong and moving. Mizrachi Mexico hosts incoming Israeli IDF delegations, and we proudly support various enterprises, including Torah and academic institutions in Israel.
And now, South Africa. Okay, whenever you say South Africa, people say, oh, Rav Doron, oh, Shelley. So thank you, South Africa, for letting them go. I know they did important things in South Africa, but now they do it global. So let's hear Executive Director, Rabbi Daniel Kaplan. Bevakasha.
Mizrachi South Africa is the religious Zionist brand and movement that brings religious Zionism to the whole of the South African Jewish community, whether it's Johannesburg, which is our main center, Cape Town, even Durban. We bring Torah to Israel to the South African community. We do this in a number of ways. First and foremost, we have our home base, which is the Yeshiva College campus, the Yeshiva Mizrachi community, which is over 1,000 membership based. We're very privileged to have a campus which has a school, a religious Zionist school, youth movement in Bnei Akiva. We have a kollel and midrasha of learning programs. So it's a very vibrant and active campus where we do most of our home activities, whether it's Yom Ha'atzmaut, Yom Yerushalayim. We focus, every Shabbat, we focus on this community at large. Mizrachi South Africa has been very active in the past few years. One, we brought many shlichim to South Africa who are making an impact both in the different Jewish day schools of South Africa and the different communities around. We have run many activities for different shuls and the community large. We partnered with over 10 to 15 communities over Shabbat Atzmaut, where we sent one of our shlichim, religious Zionist rabbonim and couples, educators to the different shuls and had a wonderful scholarly residence in the different communities. We did that also for Yom Yerushalayim last year, and we attracted many more communities in that, and so many of the South African communities really appreciated the influence that Mizrachi South Africa gave over there. Our highlight event where we launched the new brand of Mizrachi South Africa a couple of years ago was a Yom Yerushalayim concert with Yonatan Razel. It was a huge success, really celebrating Yom Yerushalayim in a powerful, meaningful way with music and words of Torah in between. We have had many local Yom Ha'atzmaut events. We've had quiz evenings for Mizrachi South Africa. We bring many guest speakers to our country and our community, Rabbonim, speakers of Israel, and we infuse that throughout the community. We have a special businessmen's lunch called the Israel Forum, where we have guest speakers on a monthly basis that gives a share in one of the offices here in South Africa and attract many local business people to hear about Israel and learn about Israel. We have also partnered with World Mizrachi and brought many publications to South Africa, to the different communities, locally, both Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, in the Mizrachi magazine, which goes out every Chag to the different shuls. And we are partnered with 10 shuls and schools in learning Tzurba on a regular basis, both as curriculum in schools and community-wide learning.
Thank you, South Africa. And now Mizrachi UK. I had a few opportunities to get to know, to see what's going on there under the leadership of Rabbi Andrew Shaw, weekends of inspirations, all kinds of events, and now through Zoom. And what really surprised me is the fact Rabbi Shaw himself grew up completely unaffiliated, quite secular, but he met the Madrichim of Bnei Akiva, and he spent Shabbatot, and he experienced what Dash Lishit is all about, and those moments changed his life. Once again, we should see ourselves as educational leaders, local leaders. It can change others and bring them to be leaders to others. So Rabbi Shaw, Mizrachi UK, bevakasha.
Five years ago, not many people have heard of Mizrachi UK. In just 5 short years, we have begun to revolutionize the UK Jewish community. Working with many partners, we have brought programs, speakers, and projects to all parts of the country. Our Mizrachi Fellows program has invested in sending 7 religious Zionist couples to Israel to obtain semicha for the husbands and advanced training for their wives. They will become the future leaders of our communities and schools. Our Mizrachi Shlichim have transformed our schools, bringing high-level Torah to Hasmonean, Yavneh, Emmanuel, and Yavneh Manchester. They've inspired our communities in Leeds, Hendon, Edgware, Bournemouth, and Manchester, as well as Bnei Akiva. Our Dreams of a Nation show has captivated thousands of people across the UK, Israel, and now America. Our film productions, such as Yom HaShoah's Grief to Hope, Yom Yerushalayim's Heart of a Nation, Yom HaZikaron's Remembering, and Tisha B'Av's Tears of a Nation, as well as the most recent Call of the Shofar for the Yomim Noa'im, have collectively received nearly 100,000 views on YouTube and Facebook. Our Weekend of Inspiration, which couldn't go ahead this year unfortunately due to the lockdown. In previous years we have brought over 25 top educators from Israel to send to communities all across the UK for Shabbat, and then our day conferences in London and Manchester. Altogether, over 10,000 people are impacted. Our publications are well read and well received. The Mizrachi magazine, published by Chagim, is printed and sent to 40 communities. Our weekly Machshavot is emailed to nearly 5,000 people, and the Tzorba program is taught in several shuls across the UK. The religious Zionist student has been looked after. There are campus shirim in Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham and Oxford, as well as the launch of the student Bet Midrash jointly with Bnei Akiva and the United Synagogue, which also led to our first student Shabbaton last year, and Milmod Lamed, a women's leadership program. Usually we take Year 12 students on a Yom Yerushalayim trip each year, as well as running programs in ER to thousands of students in Jewish schools to commemorate Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron. We also run the Ambassador program for sixth formers, preparing them for life on campus. And this year, despite the lockdown, Mizrachi UK created some remarkable programming to lift people's spirits. Our 2 UK Shabbatim at Home with the United Synagogue engaged 75 communities from all across the UK, Glasgow to Belfast, Cardiff, London, and were viewed by thousands, both before and after Shabbat. Mizrachi UK, a tremendous success story in just 5 years. There is still so much more to achieve. Join us.
Kol hakavod. Whenever I look at those impressive videos, you know what I think? I'm sure you feel it too. All those pictures are illegal now. Packed, crowded, full of people, all those places, rooms, people dancing, hugging each other. Be'ezrat Hashem, we will see those pictures once again. We will forget what Zoom is all about, and we will be able to be together b'vriut u'v'simcha. Uruguay, Rav Tzvi Elon, and local rabbis and community presidents. Bevakasha.
Affiliated with the Mizrachi movement, the veteran Yavneh community in Uruguay has been operating consistently for 30 years and has felt the need to establish an outreach infrastructure for kiruv work. Because the Uruguay Jewish community is very Zionist, its main kiruv work is done by, and within, the Zionist community itself. The non-Zionist organizations have not been successful, and the Yavneh community filled that void. It runs a yeshiva, a midrasha for girls, and all programs for university students in Uruguay are affiliated with Yavneh. In recent years, hundreds of Jews have become Balei Tshuva through the Yavneh community, the biggest spiritual center in all of Uruguay, and its only community to hold daily minyanim in Shul. On Yom Kippur, close to 3,000 people attend Yizkor and Ne'ilah. The community includes a Bnei Akiva chapter, a large kosher caterer and bakery, with people lining up to buy challah on Friday afternoons, 4 shlichim families, along with 4 Sheirut Leumi girls, and 2 Torah Mitzion Bachurim, bring the spirit of Torah Eretz Yisrael to Uruguay in a loving, enthusiastic, and fun way, creating a myriad of activity. Even those who make Aliyah maintain strong bonds with the special community and stay connected to the local rabbis.
Thank you, Uruguay. Last video. How can we summarize the United States in 3 minutes? We'll try. I met our brothers and sisters there, but sometimes, I had to remind myself, it's just a bubble. All the Jews you meet, they're engaged, they're active, they're proud. These are the Jews who come. They invite you, they want to be active. Our task is to reach out to all those millions outside of our beautiful bubble, all those unaffiliated Jews, no connection to Israel, Zionism, Torah, Hebrew, mitzvot, and I think that's the huge mission of RZA, USA RZA. Brachot to the new head of RZA, Rabbi Ari Rokov, with Rabbi Hart Levin and Shira Kaplan. Bevakasha.
The Religious Zionists of America, or RZA for short, is the American branch of World Mizrachi and serves as a national umbrella for religious Zionism in the largest Jewish community outside of Israel. RZA Mizrachi America has experienced a period of tremendous growth and expansion since 2015. We are excited to share these overview highlights with our peer branches in the World Mizrachi movement and acknowledge the efforts of our dedicated lay and professional staff across the U.S. who made this all happen. We engage with over 100 affiliated shuls and schools in cities across America, including robust RZA chapters in Chicago and Los Angeles. We've run religious Zionist programming and education in dozens of communities across the country. Even before coronavirus, the RZA was running virtual events on Zoom under the banner of RZA Live. The RZA has run programming for U.S. government officials and for major Jewish organizations in America. A pillar of RZA's activities during the past 5 years has been bringing religious Zionist educators to our shuls and schools throughout America. The flagship program run with World Mizrachi was 70 for 70, bringing in Israeli rabbis, teachers, and community leaders over the week of Yom HaAtzmaut, 70 speakers for Israel's 70th birthday. This program expanded to nearly 100 speakers and took on a virtual format this past Yom HaAtzmaut due to the pandemic. We also spread Torah Eretz Yisrael in print. We've worked with World Mizrachi to distribute over 500,000 copies of HaMizrachi magazines during the past 2 years alone, and 3,000 copies of Tzurba Mirabanan to shuls, schools, and individuals around the country. RZA understands that investing in our emerging Jewish leaders is vital to supporting them when they're facing challenges, as well as to supporting the future of religious Zionism in America. In 2016, the RZA founded the REA Fellowship to bring religious college students back to Israel to be inspired and to take part in a formal learning and training program called Recharge. Students are then charged to bring that inspiration, learning, and training back to their campuses and communities. That program joined forces with Yavneh, an RZA World Mizrachi OU partnership that serves as an umbrella for religious college student leadership, which has supported 232 fellows on 60 college campuses over 4 years. In the past year, the RZA spearheaded Mizrachi's efforts in the U.S. election for the World Zionist Congress, unifying our wide array of national partners: Orthodox Union, Yeshiva University, Torah University, Amit, B'nai Akiva, Rabbinical Council of America, Young Israel, Torah Mitzion, and RAGE. We were able to increase voting by over 125% since the last election, and our highest vote total in over 3 decades. We are grateful to the nearly 22,000 voters who supported our platform and who will continue to serve as Mizrachi ambassadors for our movement moving forward. We are excited to chart RZA Mizrachi America's next chapter under the leadership of our incoming Executive Vice President, Rabbi Ari Rockoff, and our growing dynamic team, including Rabbi Hart Levine and Shira Kaplan. Together, we look forward to building upon the solid foundation and to expanding our reach and impact in the years to come.
Thank you, North America. I think in less than an hour, we visited the whole Jewish world, basically, and we saw so many impressive things, so many local leaders changing the Jewish world. Thank you for touching millions of Jews out there. They're waiting for us. I'll end with a short story. It took place here in Yerushalayim. We came back to Israel, obviously, but in a way, we feel this shlichut is, it still happens. So someone asked me, one of my colleagues asked me, oh, the Jews in the States, what do you have to do there? They should all make aliyah. Shekulam ya'alu, that's it. And I told him, no, what do you mean shekulam ya'alu? They can't all come tomorrow. You should give them good education. You should make them more connected. So he said, okay, az shitremu, so they can donate. They can send their money. And I thought maybe in the past, as an Israeli, that was my perspective too. They can make aliyah, they can donate, that's it. No, we care about them. They care about us. We're brothers and sisters. It is much deeper than you think. And, I was ashamed to think maybe once that was my agenda. But after coming back from almost 1 year in the States, I think I see things in a different way. I know all the people here all see things in a different way. A woman told me here in Yerushalayim a few days ago, before Yom Kippur, she told me, oh, I miss Mar'eh Kohen. Mar'eh Kohen, the famous piyut, we sit in shul and we miss the way the Kohen Gadol in Bet HaMikdash, in the temple, the way he did all the things. Oh, he looked like a candle, kener, kechesed al pnei hachatan, keor, kekeshet, like a rainbow, like a light. All those images, describing Mar'eh Kohen. That woman told me, I miss sitting in shul and singing Mar'eh Kohen. And I realized in a minute, maybe this is our problem now during that COVID-19 crisis. We miss what we had. We miss sitting in shul, longing for, Mar'eh Kohen. No, this Piyut is about Ga'aguim. You can't just miss that Piyut. You should miss the real thing. Do you miss Kohen Gadol? Do you miss Bet HaMikdash? Do you miss Yerushalayim? Do you miss final redemption? We shouldn't just think about, let's go back to what we had. We should understand that there are new opportunities now, and we should move forward, Be'ezrat Hashem, to new levels in our Jewish identity, Jewish education, and change the world, Be'ezrat Hashem. So maybe we meet each other, Be'ezrat Hashem, with good health, בריאות טובה, שמחה, בשורות טובות. בהצלחה לכולם, גדלק, לילה טוב מירושלים. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Presenting today's final session of the Global Mizrachi Summit is Dr. Danny Lam, AM, who will preside over a report on Mizrachi's planning for the next 5 years. Thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you all soon in Israel.
Thank you still for being with us. I'm just giving a short introduction. This is a long session. We've had 2 hours and one more to go. And I think as we're moving to the final session, we really have our core. We've come to those who are sitting together to plan for the future. Of course, it's challenging on an online platform to have a genuine conversation with so many hundreds of people. It's difficult. And hence this is really just the beginning of a conversation. It's reflecting online in this way of what's been achieved over the last 5 years at World Mizrachi and what's been achieved in the 12 different national movements around the world with all the regeneration, reinvigoration, and working together. The next session is really, for me, as I said, something I'm looking so forward to. It's an opportunity to not only reflect on the past, but to begin in the present, to think about the future, to begin a conversation about the future. I also want to acknowledge our most recent member of our World Mizrachi team, Eli Ovitz. Eli joined us in recent months to keep up also with the tremendous needs of the yeshivot and seminaries and Masa subsidies and fundraising. Did an unbelievable job, but he's come and joined us in a senior position to head our ongoing development, to keep up, thank God, with the growth that we've been blessed with, and we welcome Eli as part of moving forward in the present for the future. And I want to have a very special thank you to Dr. Danny Lam, who's not only a senior board member of ours at World Mizrachi for many years, but continues to play an instrumental role in building religious Zionism in Australia, the head of the Melbourne Jewish community in Mizrachi, and playing such a role throughout Australia. And also we thank you, Danny, that indeed it's now 2 minutes past 2 in the evening. We really apologize to you and hope you'll manage to remain awake and agree for you got to do this the whole week to run this session. And such an appropriate and obvious choice of somebody being involved integrally in World Mizrachi and in a national and local branch in Australia. And we thank you for this, and we thank you for the time, and we look so forward to what is the beginning of a conversation. It's just the beginning, an hour to begin a conversation together to move forward. Thank you very much, Danny. We greatly appreciate it. Danny Lamb.
Erev Tov, everybody, and Sivan set the stage by saying Layla Tov. That's the way I feel. And I also want to refer to Eliovitz because he sent a chat message before saying Mazel Tov to all the regional World Mizrachi centers. And if you saw and paid attention, there was terrific work going on, all guided by our ethic of Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Al Pi Torat Yisrael. And one of the interesting features is you can see that in different countries there was genuine, honest reporting of a situation which is a dynamic. Or at different times, our movement has been stronger in different centres than at other times. There is a change. Retaining position isn't always easy. Only the Ribbono Shel Olam, in his establishment of mankind and of all animals, in fact, established them bekomatan, leda'atan, uletzivyonan. Complete, perfect. For us to be able to maintain the organisation that was established by Rav Reinus in 1902 and has played an important part in the world Zionist movement, we have a responsibility. La'avda, la'ovda, u'l'shomra. We have to work it, we have to guard it. We understand that that is the study of the Torah, the performance of mitzvah taseh, the refrain from mitzvahs lo taseh. It requires us to throw our full energies in, and the most important thing that I think we can do in Chutz La'aretz is to lean on Beit Meir, the world Mizrachi movement centered in Yerushalayim, to give us the impetus, the encouragement, and the direction to be able to develop our individual movements further. That is our aim. We've seen what terrific work's going on, and it's all there before us. Kol Yisrael Orevim Zeh Lazeh. We will learn from each other. And now, without any further ado, I would like to call on the representative from Brazil called Rafael Antaki, who I see on the screen in front of me, to say a few words about Brazil and to say a little bit about what your expectations are of World Mizrachi to assist your movement. Bevakasha, Rafael.
שלום וברכה לכולם, בוקר טוב, פה בברזיל עדיין זה בוקר. אני אדבר בעברית, העברית שלי הוא קצת יותר טוב מאנגלית, אז יותר טוב כדי שכולם תבינו. יש לנו היום פה בברזיל אתגר מאוד גדול, איך זה להשתלט על הקטע של העליות. כי אנחנו עובדים מאוד מאוד חזק בקטע של העליות. בחמישה שנים האחרונות יצאו מבית ספר 100 תלמידים, שזאת אומרת 20% מהכמות של ילדים, ועכשיו יש לנו בעיה שהקהילה התחילה להקטין, והאנשים שממשיכים פה בבית ספר, הם מרגישים שהם לא בגוף גדול, כי כשילד הוא בבית ספר, הוא רוצה להקים חברה, ואף על פי כן, שיש כאילו חברה גלובלית, שהמון יהודים בכל עולם ובארץ, הם רואים פה את עצמם בקהילה של ריו. ואני מודה לכם, אם אתם תגידו לי אחר כך במייל, אני אשלח את המייל שלי בשאט, איך אתם מתמודדים עם האתגר הזאת, של כאילו כל הזמן לעשות יותר עלייה, ואיך אנחנו מסתדרים בקהילות שלנו, כי הקהילות הם מקטינים. זה אתגר אחד שרציתי לשמוע מכם אחר כך. מבחינת הדברים ששלחו פה, כאילו איך אנחנו עושים, איך היחס בין הסניף שלנו עם העולם, אני חושב שהוא מאוד טוב. אנחנו עושים הרבה דרך בני עקיבא, הרבה תוכניות של הכשרות ודברים כאלו, אז רוב הקהילה שלנו כבר היה בארץ, יש להם בוא נגיד ככה, ציונות מאוד אותנטית, מתפתחת, אבל אנחנו מרגישים שחסר לנו פה היום קצת תורה שכאילו היא מגיעה ישר מארץ ישראל. איך הם מפתרים את זה? מפתרים את זה עם שליחים. אבל פה בברזיל עכשיו בגלל הדולר מאוד קשה להביא שליחים. אז יש לנו בריו זוג אחד של שליחים, שזה נותן את הישראליות פה לקהילה, אבל אם היה תוכנית של מזרחי, הוא יודע, מהארץ, היום דרך זום הכל זה קל, והיו מביאים דרשות, שיעורים, ישר מהארץ, אני חושב שזה משהו שזה יעזור לכל הקהילות, לא רק לנו לריו, אבל לכל הקהילות. טוב, זה מה שאני יכול להגיד שאנחנו צריכים פה מהקהילה שלנו, לכל הסניפים של המזרחי בעולם, אם אתם יכולים לעזור לנו עם הנקודות האלו, אני ממש מודה לכם.
רפאל, תודה רבה. אנחנו מבינים את האתגר שלך, אני רוצה לתרגם קצת לאנגלית. The issue that Rafael refers to is the fact that they've had success with Aliyah, and as a consequence, 20% of their school children have left. It depletes the community, and they feel a contracted community, and they feel that that's a challenge. They also say that it's difficult to get shlichim to come there. Rafael, אנחנו מבינים מה שאתה אמרת, וזה אתגר מאוד רציני. אתם צריכים, אין ברירה אחרת, אלא להשיג יותר outreach, להכניס אנשים אליכם, להיות איתכם, ואנחנו צריכים לעזור לכם בשליחות. תודה רבה, אובריגדו. Shav, and now I'm calling on, well, the next one's meant to be Australia, but the next one's Argentina, and we call on Rav Tzvi Elon and Sarah Saayed to address us.
Thank you, Danny. Hi, everybody.
By the way, we've met.
Maybe.
I met you in Argentina.
Ah, yeah, sure, right.
A long time ago, with Danny Con.
Ah, yeah, that's for sure. From Uruguay.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, thanks a lot for this amazing event and Congress, and it's really zchut to be part of this great movement. Before I go to introduce Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah Sayed, that she's our shlicha in La Casa in Argentina. I just want to tell you a little bit about what's happening today in South America in Tnuat Mizrachi. 2 years ago, Rabbi Doron asked me to start like a new department of South America, of Mizrachi, even though that we have a lot of beautiful and wonderful kehilot in South America and all over South America, from Mexico to Uruguay. But I just want to tell you that 5 years ago in Argentina, that we are talking about 200,000 Jews, there wasn't a really Zionist religious community in all the neighborhood in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And 5 years ago, we start with great people from Argentina, amazing revolution of the Tzionut Datit. And today, Baruch Hashem, we try, and we have a great and huge challenge to try to connect between all our communities in South America, and not only in Argentina and Uruguay. So, like we heard from Rafael and Taki, and I'm sure that we're going to hear from all the communities, we have a great challenge, and we have a lot of etgarim and nisyonot, and now with the COVID-19, even more. But en yeush ba'olam klal, we know that Rabbi Nachman taught us that we can do all these things with anava and with tikva. And we have, Baruch Hashem, a wonderful shlichim all over the world, and a wonderful people that really want to connect Torah, Am Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael. So I am honored to introduce Sarah Sayed, that Sarah with her husband, Rabbi David, actually made revolution when they came to Argentina 2 years ago. And I really want to hear what Sarah want to tell us. And again, just to finish, I'm deeply grateful for Rabbi Doron, Rabbi Hillel, Ohad, all the staff of the Mizrachi that actually gave us this opportunity to do good things to Am Yisrael. So Yishar Koach Gadol. Sarah, bevakasha.
Shalom, everyone. So first I was told I have just 2 minutes, so I'll try to talk as fast as I can. I'll continue the Rav Tzvi with the scanning of the situation in Argentina. The younger generation drafted far away from their communities, and there's a sense of irrelevance from Judaism, from modern Orthodox through the Reform. And in this vacuum, I feel very strongly that Tzionut Datit, religious Zionism, and its ideas can fit in and fits in and can inspire and bring a new spirit to the new young generation. We're working very hard, and this connects to the challenge of Brazil. We're bringing to bring our brothers and sisters close to Yahadut and of making Aliyah. And here comes the big challenge of how can we establish a community when it's very clear that the goal is making Aliyah. And I believe strongly that once we're able to bring and get closer more and more brothers and sisters to the community, and we have, as the Rav Tzvi said, we have almost 200,000 Jews around in Argentina. As more as we bring them closer to the community, we could achieve simultaneously two of the goals of bringing them closer to Judaism and sending them up and making Aliyah. For this, I think we need two things that are very important that, and these days, they don't exist enough. We need a program of receiving the Olim from South America. We need a system that will embrace them in both in social and economical aspects, that will also be able to receive more and more Olim in this next wave. And second is a program for leaderships, let's say in between ages 25 to 40, 25, 35, to strengthen their identity to the ideas of the Mizrachi, of the Tzionut Datit. The second challenge, which I feel is very, very strong in Argentina, and I guess around South America, is the female leadership. I think that as part of community leadership, it's necessary to have a woman leadership. And in Argentina, the general society is very far behind regarding the place of women, and especially in the Torah world. And this is very, very important. And I believe that if we have a program, a unique program for women, leadership women, who would be able to bring the Torah aspect, was very, very important. Thank you very much to all. Amazing seeing so many places all around the world. Thank you very, very much. I'm proud of being part of this project.
Congratulations, Rav Tzvi and Sarah. That was an excellent report. Kol hatchalot kashot. It is difficult. You are dealing in a much more difficult part of the world and a different political situation, economic situation. So we wish you every success. I just want to say one brief thing in relation to what you said about looking after Olim better when they arrive in Israel. I'm the chairman of the Aliyah Committee of the Jewish Agency. And one of the responsibilities that I've been trying to convey to the Aliyah department is the need to look after people when they come in Israel. Now, Australia and South Africa are looked after by an organization called Telfed. America has got its own organization, as we know. And there is a bit of Olim volunteers for Olim. We have to explore that. Let's follow this discussion offline afterwards and see what we can do for you. Kol hakavod. Really outstanding to listen to you now. The next one is apparently Australia. So I'm sorry that you have to hear so much of my voice, but I'll be very, very brief. I'll be very, very brief. Our growth has just continued to go on a linear tangent. It's just gone up. But we are in a very benevolent political environment, a strong economic situation, and we have a strong Jewish community, but primarily Holocaust survivors who are naturally Zionist. And therefore, it was easier for us to work. The fundamental strength of our Mizrachi in Australia is the Chut Mishulash B'Meir Lo Yenatek. It's the bringing together of Bnei Akiva, Torah Mitzion, and Chinuch in our Jewish day schools. So in Melbourne, we have our own Jewish day school, 770 kids in Melbourne called Yavneh. In Perth, the Mizrachi in Perth is very influential in the general Jewish day school there called Carmel, the Carmel School, where its principal is a graduate of Bnei Akiva in Melbourne and our Jewish education, and the Rabbi Marcus Solomon as deputy chairman and so on. So there's an ability to blend, and the same thing occurs in Sydney. The other thing is we've always had a very close connection with the centre in Israel. We are big supporters of the concept of shlichut, and I think shlichut is the answer for all regional centres, and it's one that we need to promote. I think I've covered enough about Australia. I just feel that we have something that we can assist other centres, and happy to be able to do that. One of the things that we are very pleased about is the success of HaMizrachi magazine, as has been said, that started here, from here. And the other thing is, you should know, for those communities like Brazil and Argentina who talk about Olim and those people leaving and then they're not giving you the impetus at home, we have exactly the same situation. We would say approximately 50% of our community now resides in Israel. I'd like to now continue with Austria and introduce Nehemiah Gang, who's been a long time activist for Mizrachi. Nehemiah, wie geht's? Bitte, wait for you.
מה שאני רציתי להעיר, א', לצערנו באירופה יש מעט מאוד סניפים של המזרחי. לא בגרמניה, לא בשוויץ, לא בהונגריה, לא בסלובקיה, לא באיטליה. ואני חושב שחשוב למרכז העולמי לעבוד בכיוון הזה, ואנחנו בהחלט מוכנים להצטרף פה לבניין של סניפים נוספים. שנית, משהו רגעי, אני בכוונה אמרתי את דבריי, את הפרזנטיישן בעברית, ולא שאלו אותי אם רצוי שיתורגם לאנגלית. בעצם בחמש שנים הבאות אני חושב שצריך להמשיך בדרך ולהרחיב, כפי שאמרתי לפני דקה-שתיים, להרחיב, להשתדל לבנות מזרחי אירופאי, ואנחנו כאמור נשתדל לעזור ולסייע, ואני מקווה גם לעזרה לבנייה מצד המרכז העולמי. וזהו, זה כעת מה שאני רציתי להגיד.
נחמיה, אני רוצה לשאול אותך כמה דברים. ראשית כל, המרכז שלך זה מאוד נפלא, מאוד יפה, והרב שלך מעולה. מה המצב עם האנטישמיות שם בווינה שאתם צריכים להסתדר איתה, ואתם מרגישים יותר חזק עם ההנהגה, עם ראש הממשלה שיש לכם עכשיו?
הייתי אומר שבמשך עשרות השנים האחרונות הקהילה התחילה במצב מבחינת ה-identity, מבחינת הזהות, מבחינת הביטחון העצמי, אחרי השואה התחילה בדיכאון, בשפל המדרגה, ולאט לאט ה-self-confidence, האימון העצמי עלה, ועם הממשלה החדשה אני חייב לציין שחלה עוד עלייה במודעות ובגאווה היהודית, ואני חושב שעם האנטישמיות אין לנו, מבחינת הממשלה בוודאי שאין לנו בעיה, יש בעיות שוליות עם הימין הקיצוני, עם המוסלמים שנמצאים, אבל basically באופן שיטתי אנחנו מסתדרים יפה עם הממשלה, הממשלה היא לעזרנו, ואני אביא דוגמה אחת שאני מעורב בה במקצת בתחום 7 הקהילות של בורגנלנד, שהיו לפני השואה קהילות לפאר. הממשלה האזורית של בורגנלנד קנתה בית כנסת בקוברסטוק שהוא במצב ירוד מאוד, ובית הכנסת ישופץ, ואנחנו משתדלים גם פה להיות לעזר ולדחוף את הפרויקט הזה. זאת אומרת שאני חושב שמבחינת השלטונות אין לנו שום בעיה באוסטריה.
תודה רבה נחמיה, שתדע שהסבא שלי הוא היה מדויטשקרויסט, סיילנד, 7 קהילות. עכשיו, we're moving to Rav Elan Mazer from Canada, and before calling on you, Rav Elan, I just want to say on behalf of all my colleagues on the board of World Mizrachi, we miss the late Jack Kahn terribly. He was a wonderful colleague for all of us. We also met Paul Foreman, and we miss them all. And we wish you strength in carrying on. Rav Elan, can you please talk about Canada? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dailam. Definitely has been, even before COVID-19 hits, has been a challenging year for us in terms of losing our previous generation of leadership. But thank God that both of the individuals that you mentioned, as many others, including Kurt Rothschild, you mentioned in the beginning, worked very hard to make sure they put in place a team of very devoted individuals, many of whom are on the call right now, who have devoted to taking their legacy to the next generation and to leading it into new heights. And so we appreciate and we very much miss those who came before us, and we hope that we can continue their legacy. I think that the challenges that Canada has currently as a for the Mizrachi movement is actually a little bit of a dichotomy. The first challenge that we have is we have a lot of programs, and religious Zionism is vibrant and exciting, and people feel a part of the Mizrachi ideology and within our communities. And one of our goals is to try and use that excitement around the ideology of religious Zionism and bring it closer to the movement, to the world Mizrachi movement, to the Canadian Mizrachi movement, and create an identity of being part of the Mizrachi world. And that's something that we're working on, and we would love to have the guidance of World Mizrachi in creating more programs, shlichim, that are directly associated with the World Mizrachi movement and the Mizrachi movement to continue to spread the words of Torah Eretz Yisrael within the community, and the programs geared at creating a sense of identity within the movement, and not just a sense of participation and appreciation for what we do. So I think that we're trying to create a stronger sense of identity of our community members with the movement. The second is the opposite, and we feel that this is a conversation that has been going on for a while within our community, including with the other affiliate organizations, with Bnei Akiva and World Bnei Akiva specifically, is that we as a community, as a religious Zionist community, are very much within our bubble. And this is something that Sivan spoke about so eloquently beforehand, that we have created a wonderful bubble, a powerful bubble, and it's really wonderful to be a part of. The vast majority of the Jewish community in Canada is not a part of this. And we would like to, and we believe that our message is something that should be heard and is a powerful and empowering message the entire Jewish community should be a part of. And therefore, we would like to create more programs in the next few years to not only be looking inward, but looking outward, and how we can affect and become a stronger voice within the global Jewish world, and not just within the religious Zionist community.
Velan, you've touched on a very important subject, and that is the question of outreach, but in particular, the question of engagement with major communal organisations. Now, in the Zionist Federation of Australia, the last 5 presidents are all connected to Mizrachi. Okay, so the challenge is for Rav Elan Mazer or somebody else to take over the Canadian Zionist Federation, if it still exists, or to take over the major bodies there, and so that the Amcha of Canada sees a religious Zionist leader as a national leader. In that way, you can spread our vital message, which is the message which has the most integrity of any stream out there. And if you've got the solid base that you have described, then I think there's every potential. I wish you Hatzlacha Rabbah. But that's a message for each country. I now call upon my colleague, Rav Jerry Eisenberg. We're all mates from Chicago. Thanks, Rav Elan, to take over the floor together with Dr. Oren Laxa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Danny. On behalf of Mizrachi, Religious Zionists of Chicago, which was founded over 100 years ago, I, together with our president, Dr. Laxer, we're proud to participate in the Global Summit and thank Rabbi Doron Perez and the World Mizrachi staff for their efforts for this program, for the World Zionist Congress efforts, and for everything they do. Our time is short, so we'll get right down to 4 points, together with a few specific suggestions. First is the need to enhance the global Mizrachi movement. We should continue to strengthen the relationship of local chapters to national chapters in the case of the United States, and perhaps even in Australia, as well as to World Mizrachi. The regular Zoom meetings of Mizrachi executives should be expanded on occasion to include lay leadership. And also regional, national, hemispherical, and world Shabbatoni. Family retreats should be planned with agendas and follow-up prepared in advance. Oren?
Thanks, Rav Jerry. As Rav Jerry mentioned, we've been around here in Chicago for over 100 years. And so part of how you stay around that long is by membership. Much like we're hearing from some of the other communities, at a certain level, we've been a victim of our own success. As Rav Jerry said in our presentation, we've had a tremendous number of people who've made Aliyah. How you deal with that is you have to have future generations to step in. And so you need to come up with a system to engage younger generations. And this starts with programs through Bnei Akiva and Camp Mosheva here. The programs that Mizrachi is doing with the gap year students is critically important. We need to kind of advertise that to our high school students who are heading to Israel so that they're aware that those programs exist and they seek them out. And then beyond that, through programs like the REA program, Yavneh, and now the more recent Yavneh's program, it's to keep those Bnei Akiva and Mosheva children involved as young adults and continue to be involved, and perhaps connecting Yavneh, Yavneh's with the local chapters, universities out on the West Coast being aware of the LA chapter, universities in the Midwest being aware of the Chicago chapter, because that's how you sort of get your future leaderships. Continuing fellowship programs, leadership retreats, and then you kind of have to fill in a gap between our current memberships and the up and coming memberships by engaging couples in their 20s, 30s, 40s, having leadership programs for them in Israel so they come back to the communities and help those communities, local communities grow. And that leads us into our third step, which is further programming and projects. As much as sometimes it causes us to be a victim of our own success, part of our goal is to promote Aliyah. We heard from some of the other countries how to help citizens of those countries that are coming home to Israel to ease the Aliyah process for them. We think it's critically important. To broaden the connections between the local chapters and the Chutz La'aretz religious Zionist communities and those in Israel through things like Together as One. As you heard in our video, we've established that connection with the religious Zionist community in Kiryat Gat, but also between our communities, between communities in the United States and United Kingdom and Australia and South America. Those are all things that can strengthen the World Mizrachi movement as a whole. To have projects that are related more directly to Israel and its infrastructure, projects such as we did with the Chayalim Bodedim, projects with perhaps helping out Bnot Sheirut Bodedot that come from all our different countries. And then projects with organizations such as the JNF Karen Kayama Israel. And lastly, as we've been talking about, the educational aspect of our program, the Yemei Iyun, the Shiurim, the Tsurba, Daf Yomi, the Speakers Bureau, and things like that. We need to keep people engaged. I'm going to turn it back to Rav Jerry.
Thanks, Oren. Our fourth suggestion relates to communications. In the area of social media, providing human and financial resources to support the branches so that they can establish and maintain an effective and Mizrachi movement-centered social media presence, obviously with a focus on Israel advocacy. But next, regarding the excellent HaMizrachi magazine, maybe we should consider adding some type of ongoing interactive HaMizrachi-based project so that people will keep turning to HaMizrachi, not just when they're reading it, but even during the week and during other times, perhaps something that's youth or family-oriented. And lastly is the need for a unified website experience, a constantly being updated Mizrachi website that would make our Mizrachi website the go-to destination for our Kehilot, with links to branches, key leaders, and community details. For example, someone planning to visit London, to take one city, can get up-to-date information, including contact links on London's religious Zionist community from our Mizrachi website, and resources such as videos, virtual tours, lectures, print materials, and historical pieces. There's a lot that's going on and lots out there on our websites, but to unify the whole thing and to have programming ideas shared by all branches, yet allow the site to be available for customization by each branch and still retain the same overall flavor and common content. Again, we want to thank all those who work so hard on behalf of our Tenuah and pray that Hashem grant us all Hatzlacha Rabbah in our Avodat HaKodesh.
Comments. Thank you very much for your insightful comments. We need to do a lot of work together. One of the things you talked about, Dr. Oren, is partnerships and reaching out to different organizations to develop things together. at the bottom of the whole thing are two things. It needs a commitment of volunteers who are genuinely committed to the organization, and the other one is im ein kemach ein Torah. We've got to throw money at it to be able to do this work. But this was great stuff, and I think we can all learn from that. Now, by the way, I want to say this. There's a very clear distinction between operating in the United States of America and any of the other communities which don't have that incredible size and number that you have. It's a totally different challenge. As Debbie Isaac sent me in a chat line, it's a different ball game. We understand that. But we think that we can grow everywhere because the sky's the limit for us. I'd now like to call on Rav Avram Deri to talk about the issues in France. Commenta la vous, Rav Avram, bon nuit. Can we find Rav Avram? If not, we'll skip and come back. Okay, let's skip and come back, and we'll move to Beto Lubaton from Mexico. Buenas noches.
שלום, שלום לכולם. בהתחלה אני מאוד מבסוט ואני מאוד מכובד להיות פה בפאנל הזה. אנחנו במקסיקו, במזרחי, יש לנו שני השקפות. ההשקפה הראשונה זה חינוך, יש לנו את בית הספר יבנה, איפה שאנחנו נותנים את כל החינוך של בית הספר יבנה, ויש לנו גם את בני עקיבא, שגם עובד בחינוך לא פורמלי, ושם אנחנו עובדים די טוב, ויש לנו עוד השקפה, שזה השקפה של קירוב. קירוב לא רק ליהדות, קירוב גם ליהדות, לתורת ארץ ישראל. יש לנו פה במקסיקו כמה דברים שאנחנו מביאים מהארץ. יש לנו בנות, 3 בנות שבאים כל שנה משירות לאומי, והן עובדות עם הילדים בבית הספר, עובדות עם הילדים בבני עקיבא, מביאים להם את השירים, פיוטים, כל מיני דברים שהחיים של ארץ ישראל הם מביאות למקסיקו. וגם יש לנו פה 2 בחורים של תורה מציון, שגם לומדים עם הילדים, וזה ההשקפה שיש לנו במסגרת של מזרחי, של בני עקיבא, של יבנה, פה במקסיקו, זה השקפה מאוד מאוד גדולה על תורת ארץ ישראל. אבל יש לנו את חוסר אחד, כי פה במקסיקו, שזה האתגר שלנו, של מזרחי, פה במקסיקו יש לנו קהילה דתייה מאוד מאוד גדולה, אבל הם לא מכירים מזרחי, אף פעם לא יודעים מה זה מזרחי, הם בדרך כלל בהשקפה, לא שהם מתנהגים ככה, אבל הולכים בהשקפה של הליטאים. אז יש לנו אתגר להביא את כל המשפחות האלה שהם מוכרים למזרחי, אבל הם לא יודעים את זה. זה אחד מהאתגרים שאנחנו צריכים לעבוד עם זה. בשביל זה אנחנו צריכים אולי שליח שיעבוד איתנו, אולי צריכים יותר חומר בספרדית, חומר של ספרים, וכל מיני חומר בשביל לחנך את הילדים בספרדית. ועוד דבר שיש לנו גם את האתגר, זה לעשות את הקליטה בשביל שאנשים יעשו עלייה. אני חושב שזה בכמה מילים מה שאנחנו, יש לנו ומה אנחנו, איפה שאנחנו צריכים לעבוד לעתיד.
תודה רבה, בטו. יש לכם היסטוריה מאוד עשירה בעבודתכם במקסיקו. שמענו בית ספר יבנה שנים כבר, אז כל הכבוד, תמשיכו, ואנחנו מצד הוורלד מזרחי צריכים לעזור לכם עד כמה שאתם רוצים ומבקשים. לא הביישן לומד, צריכים לשאול, צריכים לבקש. אוקיי, בסדר, עכשיו אנחנו נחזור לרב אברהם דרי, שהוא ידבר על צרפת.
כן. שומעים אותי?
שומעים.
יופי, שלום וערב טוב. אני מאוד שמח על הפנייה, שמח על ההשתתפות. הצגת הדברים הייתה ממש פלא גדול, נהניתי מאוד, וממש ממש יש פה זכות מיוחדת. רוצה להודות בראש ובראשונה לכל הצוות, ודאי למנכ"ל, לרב דורון פרץ, לכל הצוות שלו. יש כאן ממש ממש חשיבה לפרטי פרטים, השקעה ועבודה. כמעט אנחנו נאמר שאומנם בוודאי שאין תחליף בסופו של דבר למפגש אמיתי, שכולם רואים ונפגשים אחד עם השני, אבל יחד עם זה גם המהדורה הנוכחית, אודות כל המאמצים, מביאה את כל אפילו המצופה וגם מעבר למצופה. וכך בעזרת השם נקווה ונתפלל ויהי נועם אדוני אלוהינו עלינו, ומעשה ידינו כוננה עלינו, ומעשה ידינו כוננהו. בהקשר לדסק צרפת, כך אנחנו קראנו לזה, הוא עבר כמה וכמה גלגולים, לא יודע אם זה נכון עכשיו לעשות את כל ההיסטוריה, אבל מזה כמה חודשים שזכיתי, ממש זכות גדולה, לעמוד בראש הדסק הזה, אני פועל בכמה וכמה אפיקים. יש כרגע, אפשר לומר, שדסק צרפת של מזרחי העולמי הוא שותפות, ממש פרי שותפות וחיבור בין שלושה ארגונים. יש את הארגון של שדרים, שדרים הוקם על ידי איגוד רבני קהילות בנשיאות של הרב מורנו ורבנו הרב מרדכי אליהו, ביושב ראש למעשה הבן הרב עמיחי אליהו, פעל כבר מלפני שנה, ראינו כמה תמונות גם מההישגים של הביקור של הרב שמואל בעצמו בפריז לפני כשנה, ראינו את זה בתמונות, והתחבר ממש עכשיו ארגון נוסף, קהליטה. קהליטה הוא למעשה ארגון גג בארץ, שמקבץ ומכיל עמותות רבות שפועלות למען קליטת עולים מצרפת. בכמה וכמה אפיקים, תעסוקה, חינוך, דיור, כל הזכויות, נציגות ממש משמעותית מאוד מול משרדי הממשלה, וכל הבעלי אינטרסים, מדובר כמובן לא במובן השיווקי, אבל האינטרס היא באמת לפעול כראוי וכיאה עבור המגמה הגדולה הזאת של עידוד עלייה, של חיבור עם הקהילות בצרפת, וכמובן גם בשיפור קליטתם כאן בארץ, הוביל לידי כך שהמשימות שנקבעו כיעדים הם למעשה שלושה אפיקים. זה הזמן לפרט או ש... כן,
אני רוצה לשמוע בקיצור, מה קורה בפריז, בליון, במרסיי, בבורדו, בטולוז, יש מזרחי בכל המקומות, ומה תעשה כדי להוביל משהו בכל המקומות האלו? בקיצור, בבקשה.
בקיצור, זה אתגר גדול, ובאמת פיזרת אותי כאן לכל רחבי צרפת, וטוב שכך. אז ככה, מה שקיים כרגע, יש לנו נציגים ותיקים, שאנחנו גם נזכה לראות אותם בקונגרס, בפריז, ממש שנים, עשרות שנים, שפועלים בהפצת תורת ארץ ישראל בקרב הקהילות בפריז. יש שותף בכיר מאוד במרסיי, פול פיטוסי, הוא מנהל בית הספר יבנה, והוא מאוד 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 מעוניין לחבר ולהתחבר על מנת לעשות עוד פעילויות נוספות. אני אתן דוגמה, אני חושב שהדוגמה שאני אנקוט בה, תיתן תמונת מצב נראה לי די ראויה. שבת לך לך, אנחנו השבת, שבת בראשית, נוח, בעוד שבועיים, 3 שבועות, אנחנו מארגנים מבצע שבת לך לך. העולה החדש הראשון, אברהם אבינו, שקיבל, הוא לא עבר דרך הסוכנות, הוא לא היה צריך לקבל איזה אישור במשרד, פשוט קיבל ציווי של הקדוש ברוך הוא, ואכן, כך...
הרבה יותר קל.
הוא לא נדרש לכל הפרוצדורה של משרדי הסוכנות, זה נכון. אבל אנחנו כבר שנים תפסנו את השבת הזאת כאות ומופת להזדמנות לחבר את הקהילות בכל אתר ואתר על ידי שליחים. אנחנו שולחים, הרבנים שליחים, מרצים, מתארחים, עושים אירוע קהילתי. כמובן שהשנה האתגר הגדול הוא גם להוציא אותם וגם לארח אותם, במגבלות הקורונה זה מאוד מאוד קשה. לכן אנחנו לא הרמנו ידיים, אנחנו אמרנו שממש כמו שמקיימים היום את הוועידה של המזרחי בצורה הזאת דרך האמצעים הדיגיטליים, אנחנו ממש מבקשים, וכרגע אנחנו בשיא ההכנות, התחברנו כבר ל10 קהילות בצרפת שהתחברו במוצאי שבת של לך לך לאירוח וירטואלי. הרבנים ייתנו את ערכם, את דרשותם, ולאחר מכן, אחרי שכל המקומות, אני מדבר על מרסיי, ליון, הזכרת גם את ליון, אני מדבר על מערב, בורדו, פרפיניון, אני מדבר על ממש קהילות מכל מקום ומקום, שלא, הקורונה הזה והנגיף הזה לא נתן לנו להרפות את ידינו, ואנחנו מקיימים את המבצע הזה ביותר מ10 קהילות נכון לעכשיו.
רב דרי, תודה רבה. זה כבר 10 לפני 3 באוסטרליה. אני רוצה מאוד לשמוע, ואני מקווה שניפגש פעם בארץ. עכשיו אני עובר לרב דניאל קפלן, או טלי קגן. Goeie dag, gentlemen, and let's hear what you have to say from down in South Africa.
Hi, hello everyone, and thank you for a wonderful conference, and thank you, Dr. Danny Lamb, for running the session and everything you do for the Jewish world. And all I can say is that we've been privileged to be building on the shoulders of giants, to you, Rabbi Doron Perez, who really built Mizrachi South Africa, at least the Mizrachi South Africa that I grew up in. And it is a thriving movement in South Africa. It is well known in South Africa. And I think it speaks a little bit to what Ilan Meir mentioned a bit earlier on, is that the uniqueness of Mizrachi South Africa is not only focused on religious Zionist world, on only the religious world, it actually branches out and tries to look after the whole Jewish world of South Africa. We are based on a campus, a ginormous campus in South Africa, in Johannesburg, the Yeshiva College campus, the now Yeshiva Mizrachi community, which over 1,000 families are based on this campus. It's a thriving campus with a religious Zionist school, Yeshiva College, our partners, Bnei Akiva, which is probably one of the most successful Bnei Akivas around the world, which runs Machanot Piliot for over 1,000 Jewish youth. It's probably the most influential movement, I'd say, in South African Jewish community, and so many leaders of the South African Jewish world and world Jewry come from this movement, including Rabbi Doron Perez, Zev Schwartz in Torah Metzion. So many world leaders have come from Bnei Akiva South Africa, and so many of the South African Jewish leaders have come from Bnei Akiva South Africa, and Chief Rabbi Dr. Goldstein, Avram Krengel, President of the Zionist Federation. So we really have impact over the whole of South African Jewry, and we please God want to continue having an impact in the whole of South African Jewry, and please God, world Jewry. It is wonderful to hear all the snifim around the world and their piliot and their different challenges.
Daniel, I've got no doubt that you will continue to be the great success that you are. I want to take this opportunity on behalf of all here assembled to join in the Nichumim from Rabbi Avram Tanzer, a great giant in your community who passed away just recently. We remember him very fondly. I've been given instructions to speed things up. So I'm sorry, Daniel Leila Tov. And now I move to Rabbi Andrew Shaw for a quickie, mate. You did a very good video beforehand, so just top up if there's anything extra, Vakasha.
I can top up. I think it's what's interesting for me. Hi, Danny. Hi, everybody. And I'm glad you're staying up till the middle of the night for us. Is the idea that Sivan mentioned, which is, what are we? Are we a Bet Hillel or are we a Bet Shammai? Meaning Bet Shammai was always about focusing on the core, on basically not really including the Hamonam, whereas Hillel saw the idea of including everybody. And it's a very quick story. In terms of light, because we go somewhere in the life of mine. Sivan said that basically my upbringing was, it was traditional. Thank God to Bnei Akiva and so on and so forth. That got me involved in the local Sivan, and then of course, what it led to. But really what's interesting to me is what has happened over the last 20, 25 years is we basically have seeded the outreach world to the Kiruv movements. to the Haredi world who've done amazing work. And I think for us, we've got to focus in the future. What a lot of the branches have mentioned it. We are best placed in terms of outreach for the community. When I think about myself at Leeds University, why I decided to become a rabbi, it's because I realized the impact we could make as modern Orthodox religious Zionist Jews on the youth and the students of the future. I think there's been a 20-year gap. We haven't produced the leaders. Thank God in many countries they have. We haven't. We've just started. We are amazingly honored. We have 7 couples now in Israel doing smicha for the first generation of bringing back those modern Orthodox Zionist leaders. But for me, it really has to be the future Mizrachi globally has got to be realizing that the assimilation happening globally, certainly here in the UK, as the world develops in a certain way, we are the only ones who really can relate to both the modern world and the Torah world. We have this unique kind of bridge that we can be. And I think there's a huge opportunity over the next few years for Mizrachi, certainly in the UK. What we are starting this year is to make our leaders into sort of the outreach leaders of the future. Why do we do that? If you want to strengthen the young, you've got to get them into leaders.
Fantastic, Rav Andrew. Thank you very much for that encouragement. And I'm sorry there aren't time for questions, but we'll get together sometime. And now I would like to call on Marcelo Sinovich from Uruguay. Marcelo, buenos dias.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, so there's no video. Somebody stop the video. Can you see me?
Yes.
Oh, you can. Okay. Very briefly, I think that the only time in the world where Uruguay spoke at the very beginning of a forum was in 1947 at the United Nations vote for the partition of Palestine. And the only reason is because Uruguay was part of that committee. Otherwise, in the rest of the forums, Uruguay always speaks right before or right at the end, because USA always speaks before. Anyhow, and very briefly, because it's an honor and a privilege to be to have been here for 3 hours. These 3 hours actually, in my mind and in my heart, I went through the last 3 decades of my life. I think 1 hour for every decade, and we've been through it all from Uruguay. And thanks to the work of historical work of Mizrachi, we had something to start working from. Let me rephrase. When we started the work, Mizrachi was so successful that we only had a building, an empty building. That was 30 years ago. It was with passion and a lot of improvisation that we managed to build probably the most important center in Uruguay. Jewish life goes through Yavneh nowadays, 30 years later. Again, 30 years ago, there were 20,000 Jews, 22,000 Jews. There was no minyan in the entire country with 22,000 Jews. Why? Because everybody went to Israel. And all the remaining Jews were without any lack of Jewish knowledge. Nowadays, we have a thriving center, daily minyan, and I would say in a summary that Jewish life in Uruguay goes through this Zionist religious organization. And it's probably, for sure, the only one in Latin America and one of the few probably in the world. Definitely, when we started, we had to improvise a lot. Mizrachi was not so organized, so I'm blessed. I feel a bracha that we are able to see that now Mizrachi is coming back again in an organized way, so we can all feel part of this huge and important movement. Regarding the expectations, I would say that I would probably concentrate in the development of the lay leadership, beyond the educational leaders, the educational leadership that you do so well. But the development of lay leadership is important in order to have continuity in the work. So, and I would say that even more important, that it's not more important, but as important as the rabbis and the shlichim are good lay leaders that remain strong in the community, that work in the good sense in the political world within the community to spread the message that Mizrachi has to give to the Jewish world. Danny, I think
Marcello, thank you. That was excellent. I visited your center in Montevideo, Yavneh, when Danny Kohn was running the show, and I was very impressed then. And on what you've said, I'm sure it's even more impressive now. Thank you very much. And we're going to conclude now with the last center with Rav Ari Rokov from the RZA, whose name, of course, is well known to me. And if I can call on Rav Ari now, please.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you to all. I see the hour is late, and I will try to be very brief, but I must begin by acknowledging Rabbi Doron, the whole world Mizrachi, and all of my soon-to-be peers. I officially begin my role tomorrow, so this is the start of something very special and something I'm really looking forward to. I must also acknowledge my fellow teammates, Rabbi Hart Levine and Shira Kaplan, whose names were mentioned earlier, as well as our presidium, Marty Olener, Rabbi Lenny Matenki, Ernie Agustin, and Seymour Shapiro. So thank you all for welcoming me. And I will share just three observations. You know, speaking 12 out of 12, I'm with you, our friends from Uruguay. I wasn't sure who would be last, because United States actually would have been before you. So I'm glad that you were second to last. But what I want to share is really three points that I think unite us across this global movement. I originally put English words to it, which I was to share, but they work in Hebrew as well, and I'll share them, which is we all share something in common across all of our countries. And I'm new to this, so I have a lot to learn, and I'm taking notes along the way. But our mission from Diaspora, our mission as religious Zionists, is to strengthen the bond and to build the bridge. I'll say that again, to strengthen the bond and to build the bridge between the religious Zionist communities for where we live and in our state of Israel. Likasher, ligasher, vilivnot. So those are the three. So I've identified just one area in each that I wanted to share to answer the question in terms of how World Mizrachi can play a significant role in advancing that. So first, livnot, to build. So it's interesting, it was mentioned a number of times in the context of Kiruv. I had the privilege of helping run the Orthodox Israel Coalition as a volunteer, as a board member of Mizrachi here, and helping bring the numbers to a very significant level. In fact, we received the most votes in over 30 years. Yet, that was only 13% of the core community of Mizrachi in America. And more importantly, as was mentioned and referenced a few times, Danny, I think Debbie Isaac sent in a note, that's even a fraction of the community of over 6 million Jews. One area that we intend to expand, and we have already begun that process in the election, is the outreach to the over 1 million Israelis who live in America, to the Sephardic communities all across the country who are becoming more and more significant in number. And to do so, and this is where the request to World Mizrachi comes in, it's going to require translation of materials to different languages, which is already, I know, in the works. It's going to require different levels from beginners to advanced to be able to reach a broader constituency. More advanced for those who are in the core community and more beginner level for those who are new to it. So that's livnot. In the second area, ligasher, to bridge our communities. So one thing that's interesting, I think Rabbi Jerry Eisenberg mentioned this. The American Mizrachi was founded in 1914. It's well over 100 years old. It's very deep-rooted. It's generational. And Baruch Hashem, so many of the community leaders in Eretz Israel now emerged generationally from that. The emergence of Nefesh B'Nefesh, Rabbi Josh Fass, our close friend and partner and one of my good friends, has helped really steer a whole new generation to Israel. We must figure out a way to tap that human capital for the benefit of our community in particular, but all of our communities collectively. Making Aliyah is our celebration, it's our aspiration, it's our goal. We must work hard to organize those communities, and World Mizrachi can really help us on the ground organize that, leverage that. In Shlichut, of course, in all areas of Torah education, of course, but also beyond. The best and the brightest and the most passionate of our community must be an asset to retain and to leverage, and not something that is not tapped into. And finally, bonding, in the area of bonding, likasher. So this is really, for me, I will echo what was said by my friend in Uruguay. I've sat here for this period of time this morning here in New York, really mesmerized by all of the presentations and blown away by all of the activity all around. I'm humbled by it. I'm inspired by it. Being part of something bigger, even though America is so big, I will tell you, born in Boston, from America my entire life, being part of something bigger matters. Of course, Eretz Israel is part of that, but the global Jewish community and solving problems together. Unfortunately, there's been a spike in anti-Semitism in America, sadly. That has also led to the increase in Aliyah numbers. We must learn from each other. We must have the sum greater than its parts. And to me, this is something very, very unusual. It's something that's distinct, differentiated in this experience. It's something that drew me, frankly. And I would look forward to connecting with all of you, to learning from you, to sharing with you, because being able to have that privilege of connection is distinct and unique, and something that I think will transform our community for many years to come. So I thank you for the time. Thank you for welcoming me. And I look forward to a very fruitful experience together in advancing our movement to the next level.
Shkoyach Rav Ari, I just want to say that in the past we all got together in Israel in a very big forum, and it was outstanding to all meet together. But tonight, through the efforts of Rabbi Doron's office, we've been able to do this b'rovam, and I think it's been great to be able to see each other individually and speak. There'll be many more of these occasions. We'll continue doing this. I'd now like to hand over for the concluding words of Rav Doron. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danny, Dr. Lam, greatly appreciated. I just want to spend a couple of minutes just to do a quick conclusion and a reflection on this last meeting, because I think it's absolutely critical and really the crescendo of how we go forward. We said that this is just the beginning of a conversation. There's no way in an hour, even in the first 2 hours, it was just to get snippets of what we've all been doing for the last number of years. Thank God for this regeneration process. And of course, the last session, the beginning of a conversation, an opportunity to interact and really creating a platform to be able to continue this conversation going forward. And we'll create a document which brings together a lot of the issues raised here as our working document to continue these discussions. And I first and foremost want to thank you, Danny. You did an unbelievable job. It's now 3:08, and you've got the same thing every night now for 5 nights, Danny, so 4 nights in. So we apologize that Australia is so far away and that all of these sessions are like this, but you did an unbelievable job in bringing us all together. I didn't realize you could speak so many languages. You spoke to everyone in their own language. ממש דיברתי עם כולם. בשפה שלהם, אני לא אנסה לעשות זה גם בספרדית ופורטוגזית, רפאל ואלה בדרום ומרכז אמריקה, אני מצטער, אבל רק קצת בעברית, but you did an amazing job, and thank you very much for an excellently run session. Just a few very quick reflections, listening to what's been said to sort of summarize some of the main points. Number one, the South American communities spoke a lot about Aliyah versus strengthening the communities. It's been amazing for me to hear consistently what a major role religious Zionism plays in South America, but it's so successful, as we know, that it leaves the community so depleted. The 20% lack in numbers in the last few years in Uruguay and other numbers mentioned, Brazil and others. Our success is, of course, presents us with the challenge of how do we strengthen the community, not to strengthen the community for its own sake, to strengthen the community because there's still Jews there, many Jews, and they need to be serviced. So how do we get that balance right? That has to be a major element of our discussions. Aliyah, moving to Israel, such a major value, versus maintaining that commitment to the community and its leadership, one issue. Number two, small communities. Nehemiah spoke about Europe. Outside of France and England, so many of the communities are much smaller communities, and we definitely, that's a huge area for growth. We take the challenge, Nehemiah, we've got ideas in that respect to build active and proactive Mizrachi branches, not only having delegates. We do have delegates from all of those countries, but we don't have real activities. That's why they're not presenting today. The people presenting are where there's a Mizrachi with a Mizrachi office with a religious Zionist activity, and that is a challenge that we need to look at. Smaller communities going forward, a big area of challenge. Number three, Rav Danny, you spoke about the larger communities, the Chut HaMeshulash, Danny Lam, Bnei Akiva, schools, Torah Metzion, the shuls, Mizrachi. It's the same thing we've got in South Africa, Canada, and many other communities where they're based in one large community. How does one galvanize all the different parts of the community, the communal aspects, formal, informal education, youth movement, etc.? That's also a challenge. Just like we're trying to galvanize things in Israel in our World Center, there's a big challenge in the coming years to galvanize ourselves as a World Center with all of our partners and to do the same in a synergistic way. That's another challenge within the communities, especially the bigger communities where there's so much to do. Next point, outreach. Well, outreach is a massive, massive challenge, and there are lots of elements to outreach. Of course, there's the obvious element to outreach that a number of you mentioned, Rav Ilan, a number of the South American participants, of course, Rav Ari and others mentioned, Rav Daniel Kaplan. Get unaffiliated Jews. There's such a role to play, and Rav Andrew emphasized this a lot, such a role to play for the so many thousands and tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Jews in all the communities, so many communities where there's a need for religious Zionist Torah, the engaging, uplifting, Israel-centered Torah. There's a huge opportunity, and it's something that we need also to think about outreach to the less affiliated. Outreach to the Israelis, that's a massive challenge, an untapped potential, and something which needs its own culture and its own discussions. Nobody's succeeding with that. It's one of the next challenges, something to discuss, as Rav Ari mentioned. Sephardi communities. Part of the challenges is that Mizrachi is an Ashkenazi-based community. We're asking about Ashkenazi-based movement. Even in places like in Mexico, where there's so many Sephardi communities, we tend to be focused more in the Ashkenazi community. And so too in other places. It's not a criticism, it's a description of the reality, which gives us a great opportunity to go forward and to reach out into Sephardi communities. What I learned in the last number of years when I was in the United States, in the last number of months when I was campaigning with Rabbi Rockhoff, who did such an amazing job, and the team there, and Rav Hart and the entire team, and Rav Yehuda, was what unbelievably established Zionistic Sephardic communities there are. It's a huge untapped potential for, and there's so many of them, for us as religious Zionists. Unbelievable opportunity, outreach. Also outreach, I want to say, to the religious communities. Maybe Rav Ilan, that's what you mentioned when you said outreach outside of our bubble. It's not just the unaffiliated bubble. There's huge religious communities which also need, just like perhaps the less affiliated need the Zionist and Yahadut aspect, the more religious can also benefit from our fervor for Eretz Yisrael and the connection. And in this context, I just want to mention one project. It's been mentioned a lot, but it's just happened recently, and I want to acknowledge it. We know that the Surmi Rabbanan project, which has in Israel transformed halakha learning, and we've just begun to bring it to the world through Rabbi Podlashuk, Rabbi Gazi, Manigut Toranit, and Mizrachi's partnership. I just want to acknowledge Rabbi Seth Grauer's major role, and the Lax family from Toronto, from Canada, to Michael and to Masha, who've done this unbelievable thing of dedicating a tremendous contribution over 5 years in memory of their children, Jonathan and Ethan, and we hope and pray this and all the project will be a tremendous schut for their memories, but to bring halakha learning of the highest level and accessible to hundreds of thousands, of tens of thousands, and if not hundreds of thousands, through this accessible halakha learning. That's a gift which has just taken place literally now, and I wanted to acknowledge that, the role, as I said, of Rabbi Grau and the Lexes, and going forward as this can and should transform halakha learning, Torah to Eretz Yisrael, from Israel, high-level Torah, but engaging to communities all around the world. So I think outreach goes in all directions. And finally, just want to say that, the building a global movement, many of you have mentioned the unity and uniformity. There's a real challenge over here. How do we create a global movement? Maybe one website, maybe the go-to website, maybe a website with all the countries are reflected, maybe one massive social media platform with place for others, building the global where we all feel connected to it, but making place that the unity is not uniformity, leaving place for all of us. So as Rav Ari summarized and said, whether it's livnot, legasher, or lekasher, we've got huge challenges and opportunities ahead. I have come out of this having learned so much about so many of these communities, your work around the world, and inspired to be able together to set the platform for the next 5 years, legasher, lekasher, believe not, together, and please God, we should have tremendous success. Hashem should bless our work, and B'ezrat Hashem over the next 5 years and beyond, take Mizrachi to the greatest possible heights. Thank you for joining us for the conversation, and we look so forward to working together, Lagdil Torah, Uladira, Lagdil Torah Eretz Yisrael, Uladira. Thank you. I conclude these 3 hours. Thank you again for everybody for the roles that you've played, and we look so forward to continuing this conversation. To be continued. Thank you. Thank you.